Chapter 723. Alright, the first round, Evil Dr. Guitong wins. Following Feng Wuan's admission of defeat, the people at the Black Field side directly announced that Luo Qingtong had won this round. Hua. Lord Evil Dr. Guitong wins. Indeed, Lord Evil Doctor's strength is the strongest. A miraculous doctor who rose from nothing. Lord Evil Dr. Guitong's true strength is not something that ordinary people can compare to, okay? Moreover, she is also an alchemist. If she didn't refine medicine to the extreme, how could she possibly refine pills? This heavenly doctor really doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. That's right. You see that she admitted defeat just like that. And she even said that Lord Evil Dr. Guitong relied on opportunistic methods to win. These words are really shameless. That's right. It's clearly her own foundation that is not solid enough. She can't even recognize the composition of this kind of low-level and simple medicinal liquid. And she still dares to say that it's Lord Evil Dr. Guitong's fault. This ability to make a false accusation is also amazing. A group of people were discussing animatedly below the stage, looking down on Feng Wuan's words very much. If she lost, then she lost. She couldn't recognize the medicinal ingredients. And she still blamed Lord Evil Dr. Guitong. You couldn't even catch the questions that others gave you. And you still have the face to say it? If they encountered this kind of situation, they would have long plunged their heads into the ground, wishing that they could bury themselves in a pile of soil, okay? Really too shameless. The group of people was very disdainful in their hearts. When Feng Wuan heard these words, she was so angry that she clenched her silver teeth tightly. What did these blind trash know? If Evil Dr. Guitong didn't rely on this opportunistic method, she wouldn't have been able to win the first round at all, okay? She was just a person who only knew how to use unorthodox methods. In this round, she would let them see what a true genius alchemist was. Swish. Feng Wuan raised her hand and took back her bottle of medicinal liquid. She looked coldly at Luo Qingtong and said with a sneer, "This second round is competing on the effects of the medicinal liquid. Let's see who can maximize the effects of the medicinal liquid." Evil physician Guitong, in order to take advantage of the situation, you purposely concocted the most inferior and trashiest medicinal liquid. Let's see how much more effective this medicinal liquid can be. As she spoke, she smiled coldly and ordered someone to bring a martial artist up. That cultivator was a peak martial emperor. His face was deathly pale, as if he had taken some kind of poison or had some kind of injury on his body. Feng Wuan looked at the other party and said, "This person's internal organs were hit by an extremely insidious palm strike. If there is no treatment, his entire body will rot and turn into a pool of blood and die. The medicinal liquid in my hand can treat the injuries in his body. Watch carefully." As she spoke, she directly handed the medicinal liquid in her hand to that person and coldly said, "Drink it with the vinegar." The man trembled as he took the bottle of liquid medicine from her, and drank it together with the vinegar that was served by the Black Field people. Shwa. As soon as the medicinal liquid entered his mouth, his pale face began to slowly turn rosy. As soon as that person opened his mouth, he immediately felt that his voice had become full of energy. The pain in his internal organs also disappeared. He tried to shoot out a burst of energy. That burst of energy exploded on the stage. The attack power is very formidable. It didn't weaken the slightest bit. My injuries are healed. That martial artist doesn't dare to believe his eyes. His injuries were extremely serious. It was almost impossible to save him. That palm was practically going to shatter his internal organs. His opponent's medicinal liquid was able to cure him? That martial artist became extremely excited. Chapter 724. Before he could kneel down to thank Feng Wuan, a mysterious and proud smile suddenly appeared on the latter's face. "It's not over yet." Along with Feng Yuan's voice sounding out, an unexpected change suddenly occurred. That martial artist who was kneeling on the ground and was about to thank Feng Yuan suddenly exploded into a bloody mist one after another. Countless black auras spread out from the wounds all over his body like vines, spreading all over his body. Those strands of black auras were very thick and solid. At first glance, it looked like countless black earthworms crawling on his body. Feng Yuan narrowed her eyes and sneered. Looking at Luo Qingtong, she raised her head proudly. Ultimate medicine to ultimate poison. Evil Dr. Guitong, can you do it? Feng Yuan's heart was full of pride. Her ultimate medicine to ultimate poison was a combination of medicine and poison. The dual attribute reversal was her trump card. She dared to say that in this world, other than those old freaks who had studied alchemy to the peak, no one else would be able to do what she did. She was a natural alchemist and had the talent to become an alchemist. What was evil Dr. Guitong? If the ultimate medicine and ultimate poison in Luo Qingtong's eyes was really neutralized by evil Dr. Guitong, then the other party would definitely be inferior to her. Because that ultimate medicine and ultimate poison was only one of her methods. It couldn't be compared to the ultimate medicine to ultimate poison that she was using now. Extreme medicine and extreme poison. It was just that the arrangement of the medicine could be refined into medicine or poison. The final effect of the medicinal liquid was still a kind of medicine poison. But the medicinal liquid that she was refining now was both medicine and poison. Depending on the different ways of taking it, she could make it poison or medicine if she wanted it to be medicine. What could evil Dr. Guitong use to compare with her? Medicinal pills? Qi. Those medicinal pills that were sold in the Blackfield city of Eastern Fence Country might not be refined by the other party herself. What's more, ordinary medicinal pills couldn't neutralize her ultimate medicine to ultimate poison. Even if evil Dr. Guitong was really an alchemist, how high could her alchemy level be? The true inheritance of an alchemist was not in this true spill continent. What evil Dr. Guitong knew was only the tip of the iceberg. Feng Yuan was very proud. She proudly looked at Luo Qingtong, her eyes sweeping over everyone present, and said, "Now you know what true strength is?" Evil Dr. Guitong? Ha! Feng Yuan coldly smiled, clearly showing her contempt for Luo Qingtong. There was complete silence all around. If it was just now, her sneer would have caused everyone to attack her and laugh at her for overestimating her own capabilities. However, at this moment, everyone was dumbfounded as they stared at the cultivator who was rolling and screaming on the arena. The poison that erupted from the other party's body was so obvious. It wasn't there just a moment ago. Moreover, his injuries. This competition was supported by the people of the Dark Domain. It was absolutely impossible for the other party to tamper with it. That was to say, the other party had really turned her medicinal liquid into poison after curing that martial artist's injuries. Heavens! This alchemy skill was simply heaven-defying. The other party's reputation as a heavenly doctor was not undeserved. Her alchemy skills were actually so fierce. Just as everyone was stunned by Feng Yuan's move, Yi Zichen suddenly spoke. Chapter 725. She walked straight to the martial artist who was wailing and rolling on the stage. She raised her hand and handed over the bottle of medicinal liquid in her hand. "Drink it." Seeing Luo Qingtong's actions, Feng Yuan sneered. Her heart was filled with disdain. Evil Dr. Guitong, the medicinal liquid that you refined is the most trashy medicinal liquid. Don't talk about curing my poison. It's not even certain if it will be effective on him. You don't have any other ideas, so you came here to play to the gallery? Feng Yuan's heart was filled with disdain. She didn't believe that Luo Qingtong could use that bottle of medicinal liquid to cure her poison. Only she knew about the fusion and transformation of the medicinal properties. Luo Qingtong definitely couldn't see through it in a short period of time. Not to mention using a bottle of trash-like medicinal liquid to detoxify his own poison. Even if Luo Qingtong added the best things into that medicinal liquid, it wouldn't be as effective. After all, the other party's medicinal liquid's grade had already determined that its improvement was limited. Luo Qingtong was bound to lose this round. However, just as her voice fell, that martial artist who had been tortured to the point where his life was worse than death had already grabbed the bottle of medicinal liquid that Luo Qingtong had handed over and drank it in one gulp. He had no other ideas now. He could only use Luo Qingtong as his last life-saving straw. Evil Dr. Guitong's medical skills are unparalleled. She will definitely be able to save me. As he thought so, he drank the entire bottle of medicinal liquid in Luo Qingtong's hands without hesitation. Feng Yuan sneered. The other party was just struggling on his deathbed. The medicinal liquid that Luo Qingtong refined was of such a low grade. To him, it was just like drinking plain water. When this person died from the poison, he would know how laughable his thoughts were. Hoping that evil Dr. Gui Tong would use her low-grade medicinal liquid to save him? More like a dream. However, as Feng Wuan was thinking this, the martialist's body suddenly stopped moving. Humph dead. Feng Wuan looked at Luo Qingtong with a happy expression and sneered. Evil Dr. Gui Tong, you've lost. Seeing the martial artist's body suddenly stop twitching and rolling on the stage, Feng Wuan raised his head high. Really? Look again. Luo Qingtong looked at her indifferently. No matter how much you look. Feng Wuan's voice suddenly stopped. Her face was filled with shock as she looked at the warrior, who suddenly stood up from the ring. The woman's face was flushed red, and her body, which looked like black earthworms crawling all over her body, was no longer there. The wounds all over his body had also completely healed. He was actually fine. Look, the poison is gone. Oh my God. Evil Dr. Ghost Eye is indeed the most powerful. This is the ultimate medicine that has been turned into the ultimate poison. She can actually cure it. She's really too powerful. The crowd below the stage had already gone completely crazy when they saw this scene. They were shocked by Feng Wuan's methods before, and now they were shocked when they saw Luo Qingtong cure the poison. Evil Dr. Ghost Eye was indeed different from the rest. She could even cure this kind of heaven-defying method. In this world, other than those reclusive and rare peerless doctors, who else could be her opponent? The crowd cheered loudly. When Feng Wuan saw this scene, he couldn't believe it. Impossible. There's no way that bottle of trash medicine of yours can cure my poison. Chapter 726. It's true that I didn't cure your poison. As she spoke, she lifted her eyes to look at Feng Wuan, and the smile on her lips was unbridled. I did reverse your poison. As Luo Qingtong's voice fell, the surrounding voices instantly fell silent. What did Lord Evil Dr. Gui Tong say? The crowd below the stage was indescribably shocked. It seems like she said that she reversed the heavenly doctor's poison. A warrior murmured. Haha. Are you kidding? Did you hear wrongly? The heavenly doctor's hand can turn ultimate medicine into ultimate poison. It's already good enough that Lord Evil Doctor can cure the poison. How is it possible? Before the other warrior could finish his words, his voice was stuck in his throat. He looked at the scene in the arena with a shocked expression. Boom. All of a sudden, an extremely powerful medicinal strength erupted from the poisoned martial artist's body. Under the effect of this medicinal power, the warrior's aura instantly soared. Boom, boom, boom. As the aura in his body broke through layer by layer. In the next second, with a pop, the aura around his body seemed to have broken out of a cocoon and suddenly soared. Martial Ancestor Realm. That pinnacle martial emperor powerhouse had shockingly risen to the martial ancestor realm under such circumstances. Everyone could clearly see that what that warrior drank was indeed the low-grade medicinal liquid refined by Luo Qingtong, which only had a trace of weak spiritual energy. Therefore, that majestic medicinal power was definitely not the effect of that bottle of low-grade medicinal liquid. Therefore, ultimate poison turned ultimate medicine. The poison that the heavenly doctor's hand put in that warrior's body was completely reversed. It turned into a majestic and vast medicinal power, which directly allowed that warrior to benefit from a disaster. His aura soared, and he broke through to the martial ancestor realm. Oh my God! Lord Evil Dr. Gui Tong actually did it. Ultimate medicine turned to poison, then turned to medicine. Oh my God! This is definitely a pinnacle battle between alchemists. And Lord Evil Dr. Gui Tong's move is simply amazing. It's not just amazing, it's simply unprecedented and will never be replicated. Any expert who was slightly knowledgeable about the situation let out a series of exclamations at this moment. Not for other reasons, but Luo Qingtong's skill was clearly superior to his when it came to the transformation of ultimate medicine and ultimate poison. Feng Wuan's transformation was because she was the one who refined the medicine. Naturally, she knew the details and also knew what method to use to reverse it. Don't think that she lifted something heavy in the arena like it was light. Who knew how many times she had practiced it in private? But Luo Qingtong, on the basis of Feng Wuan ultimate medicine to reverse poison from ultimate medicine. What she used was a completely unknown opponent's medicine. In addition, the bottle in her hand was a low-grade medicinal liquid. She completed this kind of reversal. Oh my God! Everyone stared at this scene with their mouths agape. They simply did not know how to react. Feng Yuan was also dumbfounded. Ultimate poison to ultimate medicine evil Feng Luo Font. Tes use a low-grade atilons. How did she do it? Feng Yuan looked at Luo Qingtong, her eyes filled with disbelief. But this time she couldn't even utter the word impossible. If Luo Qingtong used that bottle of low-grade medicinal liquid to neutralize her poison, she could still suspect that the other party used other methods. But ultimate poison to ultimate medicine was something that couldn't be resolved even if she used other methods. This was a genuine contest of alchemy skills, and Luo Qingtong completely crushed her. She used extremely precious medicinal herbs and refined medicinal liquid of heaven grade and above. The poison after the reversal was shocking. But Luo Qingtong only used a bottle of low-grade medicinal liquid to reverse her poison. Chapter 727. Second round, Evil Dr. Gui Tong wins. A voice announcing Luo Qingtong's victory resounded from the stage. Evil Dr. Gui Tong Darren. How did you manage to use a bottle of low-grade medicinal liquid to reverse the poison? The crowd of pharmacists looked at Luo Qingtong with burning eyes. Luo Qingtong's move was really too powerful. It wasn't something an ordinary person could do. They couldn't even imagine it. They had no idea how Luo Qingtong did it. Luo Qingtong looked at them with a smile that wasn't a smile. It's very simple. As long as you can purify that bottle of low-grade medicinal liquid a second time, it'll be fine. That's to refine medicine on top of the medicinal liquid. Luo Qingtong's bottle of low-grade medicinal liquid looked like it was still the same bottle of low-grade medicinal liquid. In fact, when she handed it to that martial artist, she had already used her eye technique to remove all the impurities inside. With Luo Qingtong's ability, that bottle of low-grade medicinal liquid was only left with a poison that could be compatible with the poison in that martial artist's body. Under such circumstances, when the other party drank that bottle of medicinal liquid, it naturally reacted with the poison in his body, directly reversing and synthesizing a new medicinal liquid. As long as they could see through the poison in the other party's body and remove the medicinal properties in the medicinal liquid, they could also achieve this. However, that wasn't something an ordinary person could do. Remove the medicinal properties? Refine medicine on top of the medicinal liquid? My God! Everyone was already gasping in amazement when they heard this. Not to mention the eyesight needed to see through the poison and medicinal properties in the other party's body. Refining medicine on top of the medicinal liquid required a terrifying amount of control over the medicinal properties and the stability of the medicinal liquid. Everyone thought about it and realized that if it was them, they would definitely not be able to do it. They immediately admired Luo Qingtong even more. Feng Yuan also clenched her teeth for a while. She had previously said that Luo Qingtong relied on opportunistic tricks to win the previous round. This time, Luo Qingtong ruthlessly slapped her face back. If this kind of medicinal skill could be said to be opportunistic, then the difficulty of being opportunistic was too great. Moreover, she had originally thought that Luo Qingtong had only refined a bottle of trash medicine in the previous round, so she would definitely lose this round. However, he was ruthlessly and accurately slapped by the other party. How could her medical skills be so amazing? Damn it, if she had known, she would have used that trump card. Feng Yuan gritted his teeth and looked at Luo Qingtong. The girl also raised her eyebrows and looked at her. Luo Qingtong was dressed in men's clothing. Standing there, she looked extremely enchanting and charming. She slowly walked in front of Feng Yuan and slightly raised her face covered by the Rakshasa ghost mask. The corners of her lips curled up as she looked at the white-robed man opposite her and said, "Best of 3 wins. Heavenly Divine Doctor, I still have to thank you for going easy on me. It would be impolite for a rotten piece of wood like me to refuse. I will kindly accept your cauldron and heavenly water jade heart lotus." As soon as Luo Qingtong's words came out, Feng Wuan's face instantly flushed red and her blood rushed to her head. Previously, she ran to the city lord's mansion and said in front of Luo Qingtong that she and the other party were rotten wood and good wood. She also said that Luo Qingtong, this rotten piece of wood, was not worthy to stand beside Mingzun, and that she, this good wood, was the most suitable. This time, she was slapped in the face by Luo Qingtong. Not to mention that she lost 2 rounds in a row, she was still crushed. Feng Wuan's heart was filled with hatred and her entire body trembled. What was called humiliation? This was called humiliation. In front of everyone's eyes. In front of everyone's eyes. Chapter 728. Not only that, she had also lost 2 treasures. The heavenly water jade heart lotus and the square immortal cauldron. She had personally delivered these 2 items to Luo Qingtong. Thinking of this, Feng Wuan felt a fishy sweetness in her throat, and she was about to vomit blood. She fiercely pinched her palms, looked at Luo Qingtong and said, "Evil physician Ghost Eye, I want to compete with you again." Previously, she had underestimated her opponent. This time she would definitely not. That trump card of hers could definitely defeat Luo Qingtong. "I'm not free." Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows, turned around, and prepared to leave. She had already gotten the items, and she had more or less crushed her opponent. She had no time to play house with her opponent. Those 2 items, the heavenly water jade heart lotus and the square immortal cauldron, she had to go back and study them properly. How could she have the time to dawdle with her opponent? If not for the fact that this heavenly doctor had paid a sufficient price previously, Luo Qingtong would not have bothered with her. Evil physician Ghost Eye. Seeing Luo Qingtong turn around and prepare to leave, Feng Wuan gritted her teeth so hard that they were about to break. Since when had she been ignored like this? She would definitely return all the humiliation that the other party had given her in a while. Thinking of this, Feng Wuan's eyes suddenly flashed with a stern look. Within it, a faint purplish-green color flashed past. "You and I will compete again. This time, we won't compete in anything else. Let's compete in identifying herbs with a mask, and see who can identify more herbs. How about it?" As she spoke, she looked at Luo Qingtong with a cold smile. "Aren't your medicinal skills unparalleled? Then your ability to identify herbs is definitely above mine. If you win this round from now on, I will avoid you like the plague when I see you. In the future, I will never step into the black field again, and I will never appear in front of Mingzun again." When Feng Wuan said this, she was also ruthless. This time, she would definitely be able to defeat Luo Qingtong. She did not believe that she would not be able to defeat her opponent with her extraordinary eyes. Luo Qingtong looked at her and raised her eyebrows. Just as she was about to say something, a voice suddenly entered her ears. Luo Qingtong's expression instantly changed. "Not interested." She turned to leave after saying that. Evil Dr. Ghost Eye. Seeing that she was about to leave, Feng Wuan instantly became anxious. "Are you scared? This time, I will definitely beat you. If you have the ability, then accept the challenge. Otherwise, even if you won the previous 2 rounds, I don't think you're better than me. That's your business." Luo Qingtong didn't even bother to look at her. "It doesn't matter if you're willing to admit that you're inferior to me. As for me being afraid of you," Luo Qingtong leaped up. "Wait till you can do what I just did to turn poison into medicine. Then you can talk to me about this." As she spoke, her figure disappeared from the arena. Evil Dr. Ghost Eye. Feng Wuan's heart was filled with embarrassment. Under everyone's watchful eyes, Luo Qingtong's words were really a slap to her face. She wanted to provoke Luo Qingtong into competing with her in the 3rd round, but Luo Qingtong didn't accept it at all. She directly used the result of the 2nd round to slap her face. Unfortunately, Feng Wuan couldn't do anything about it. If she was able to do what Luo Qingtong did just now, why would she even think of using the 3rd round to make a comeback? This evil Dr. Ghost Eye was really too hateful. She was obviously deliberately humiliating her like this. Feng Wuan's heart was filled with hatred to the extreme. The whispers around her and the mocking and disdainful gazes directed at her made her feel extremely embarrassed. Not only did she fail to slap the face, she was also slapped. This was her current situation. Feng Wuan came to the main city of the Black Field in high spirits, wanting to replace Luo Qingtong. Chapter 729. Let's go. She shouted with shame and anger on her face. Sooner or later, she would return all of this humiliation to evil Dr. Ghost Eye. Just you wait. The group of people fled the Blackfield main city in a sorry state like a pack of stray dogs. Luo Qingtong, after a few leaps, suddenly appeared at a corner of the wall behind the Blackfield main city's City Lord mansion. Grandfather, where are you going? Looking at a certain sneaky figure lying on the wall, Luo Qingtong's face was full of helplessness. Ah, Qingtong. Ouch. Luo Laoi, who was lying on the wall and secretly preparing to climb over, suddenly heard Luo Qingtong's cry and was startled. Before he could turn around, he missed a step and fell down from the several meters high wall of the City Lord mansion. Grandfather. Seeing this scene, Luo Qingtong flung her sleeve and hurriedly rushed over to catch Luo Laoi. This prevented him from falling flat on his face. Cough, cough, cough. Qingtong, you're back? Luo Laoi stood at the corner of the wall, his eyes darting left and right, unspeakably guilty. That's right. If I didn't come back, where were you going? Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows and asked him. She had already taken off the Rakshasa ghost mask on her face, and her long hair was also let down. She casually tied it into a bun on the side, looking playful and cute. In just a moment, Luo Qingtong changed from an androgynous, devilishly charming and peerless youth to an enchanting and beautiful young lady. She held her Rakshasa ghost mask, crossed her arms, and stood there looking at her grandfather with a pair of slanted eyebrows. Just now on the stage, she received a transmission from the Blackfield main city's City Lord mansion, saying that Luo Laoi seemed to want to secretly leave the City Lord mansion, so she hurriedly rushed back. No. No. Luo Laoi's gaze darted even more. I just want to. Yes, go out for a walk. I just want to go out for a walk. He slapped his thigh and said confidently. Grandpa just wants to go out for a walk. It's so boring. Do you have to make such a big fuss? You almost scared me to death. Is that so? Luo Qingtong looked at him with a smile that was not a smile. Climb the wall and go out for a walk? You even brought a package with you? As she spoke, she fixed her gaze on the bag that old Master Luo was carrying. Old Master Luo's face twitched as he looked at the evidence of him running away from home. Yes, I am leaving. Seeing that he couldn't hide it any longer, Grandfather Luo gritted his teeth and squatted on the ground. Qingtong, don't bother about Grandfather. This matter. You can't do anything about it. Old Master Luo's voice was muffled. Thinking of the news he had just heard about the Empress Dowager's groom selection in the City Lord's mansion, his heart felt stifled. He knew that Luo Qingtong brought him to the Blackfield main city to help him. But he was no longer young, and he didn't have the strength. How could he match her? Even if Luo Qingtong could ask the Blackfield's power to help him, Grandfather Luo's heart wouldn't be able to get over his own hurdle. Not to mention. In short, don't bother about Grandfather. Qingtong, you've been running around too much for Grandfather's matters. You've even delayed the matters at the Holy Court of the Empire of Qin. Go back quickly. Grandfather is fine. I'll go out for a walk. Don't think about your grandmother's matters, so there should be no problem. Grandfather Luo's expression was desolate. He really didn't want to implicate his granddaughter and make her busy for him. Chapter 730. Okay. Seeing him like this, Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes and agreed immediately. She took her Rakshasa mask, turned around and said, Hey, I've already gotten the complete pill formula and medicinal ingredients for the pill you took before. I wanted to restore Grandpa's youth. And I've also thought of a way to increase your strength. I guarantee that you'll be able to amaze the world. But since you're not willing, then forget it. Grandpa, you can go. She patted her butt and prepared to leave. However, after taking 2 steps, Grandpa Luo jumped to his feet and pulled him back. Qingtong. You, are you telling the truth? Master Luo looked at Luo Qingtong excitedly. You're really? He stuttered for a long time. Really? Luo Qingtong looked at him and nodded, her eyes full of smiles. Grandpa, I've already found the missing ingredient. I'll be able to refine the pill for you soon. Then you'll be able to regain your youth. As for your strength, I have a way to increase it, so that you'll be able to use the power of the sage state. Luo Qingtong looked at old Master Luo's shocked face with his mouth agape. She smiled and asked, Grandpa, are you still going to give up? Give up my ass. Master Luo was about to be stunned by his precious granddaughter's words. She could restore his youth and let him use the power of the sage state. Oh my God. If it wasn't for his precious granddaughter who always kept her word, Master Luo wouldn't have believed it. But since it was his granddaughter who said it, Master Luo slapped his thigh. Go go go. Let's go back. Qingtong, how much time do you need to refine the pill? And what about increasing my strength? How do you do it? Can I make it in time for your grandmother's Empress Dowager's groom selection? He dragged Luo Qingtong back to the city lord's manor, his heart filled with indescribable excitement. He could become younger, and he could possess strength. Yanxi, wait for me to marry you. I'll do everything I can to stand by your side. I'll make it in time. Grandpa, you should rest well, and conserve your energy. Luo Qingtong looked at old Master Luo's excited face and smiled. Then she said, when I help you increase your strength, the effect will be the best. All right. Luo Qingtong's words were more effective than anything else to Grandfather Luo. Hearing this, he immediately went back to his room. He swore that if his granddaughter didn't call him, he wouldn't come out and jump around. After sending old Master Luo away, Luo Qingtong's eyes turned cold, and the smile on her face faded. What's going on? She looked to the side and asked. Did something happen to Empress Dowager Yanxi of Great Chu? Otherwise, his grandfather would not have been so disheartened and wanted to sneak away. Sir, there's news from the Great Yong Sacred Dynasty. After hearing that Empress Dowager Yanxi of Great Chu is looking for a husband, the seventh prince of Great Yong has publicly expressed his love for her, and is willing to give up all the honor and power in the Great Yong Sacred Dynasty to go to the Great Chu Sacred Dynasty to ask for Empress Dowager Yanxi's hand in marriage. At the place where Luo Qingtong was looking at, a figure of a strong man from the Black region appeared. Grandpa must have heard this news, so he left. Great Yong Sacred Dynasty? Chapter 731. Her index finger tapped on the Rakshasa ghost mask in her hand. This was interesting. She had just found out that Princess Feng Yuan of the Great Yong Dynasty was the one who had plotted against the original owner of this body. Now, the seventh prince of the Great Yong Dynasty was coming to steal her grandmother. Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes. Give me the information on the seventh prince of the Great Yong Dynasty. Also, see who else accompanied him to the Great Chu Sacred Dynasty. Luo Qingtong's expression was indifferent. She wanted to see if Princess Feng Yuan of the Great Yong Dynasty would come or not. If she came, she wanted to meet the first princess of the Great Yong Dynasty, the first genius. Yes. Hearing this, the expert of the Black Field disappeared in front of Luo Qingtong. At the same time, Feng Yuan returned to the residence in the city where she had been hiding. Looking at the white robe and mask she had taken off, she could no longer hold back the violent anger in her heart. With a bang, she raised her hand and swept the pile of things, including everything on her table, to the ground. Crackle! There was a crisp sound of shattering. The group of maidservants and guards who followed Feng Yuan did not even dare to make a sound. They all lay motionless on the ground, waiting for Feng Yuan's anger to pass. Rumble! Feng Yuan raised her hand and directly flipped the square table in front of her to the ground. The table fiercely smashed into a maidservant who was kneeling on the ground. The latter let out a muffled groan, forcibly withstanding the violent force, not daring to cry out in pain even a little bit. Feng Yuan's eyes were red. Standing in the midst of the mess, she looked like an evil spirit who had crawled out of hell. She panted, thinking of the humiliation she had suffered in the main city of the Black Field today. She clenched her fists so tightly that she almost broke her finger bones. At this moment, she seemed to feel something and raised her hand to let everyone in the room leave. Master. After everyone left, Feng Yuan respectfully bowed his head and called out. A wisp of green smoke suddenly appeared in front of her. That wisp of green smoke suddenly transformed into a faintly discernible human silhouette in midair. Yes. The green smoke replied in a low voice, then said, "Where's my square immortal cauldron? Take it out. Master has found a way to open the first layer. Perhaps it will allow you to break through the limits of an alchemist earlier and become an alchemist." Before he could finish, Feng Wuan's expression suddenly changed. "Square immortal cauldron. Master." Feng Wuan clenched his teeth, unable to speak. His heart was filled with extreme regret. If she had known that her master had a way to open the four-sided immortal furnace and help her become an alchemist, she definitely wouldn't have used the four-sided immortal furnace as a stake. But now, the square immortal cauldron had fallen into the hands of the evil doctor, Ghost Eye. Feng Wuan's fingernails dug deep into his flesh when he thought about how he had not only lost a person, but also a treasure. "What's wrong with you? Where's the four-sided immortal furnace?" The wisp of green smoke also felt that something was wrong with her mood. Immediately, the smoke rolled and shouted sternly, "I!" Before Feng Wuan could finish speaking, the wisp of smoke had already searched her entire body, but it did not find any trace of the four-sided immortal furnace. Then, the smoke transformed into a large palm and slapped her hard, causing her to fall to the ground. "Bastard!" Chapter 732. Do you know what kind of treasure that square immortal furnace is? When I gave it to you, I told you to take good care of it and not make any mistakes. The treasure within that square immortal furnace is extremely precious. I went through innumerable hardships to obtain it, and my soul almost scattered. Otherwise, how could I have fallen to such a low-level continent? How could you lose it? You deserve to die." As that wisp of blue smoke spoke, it instantly slapped towards her. That aura was wild and furious, not holding back at all. If Feng Wuan were to be struck by this slap, even if she didn't die, she would be severely wounded. It could be seen just how furious the other party was. "Master." Seeing this slap, Feng Wuan's heart chilled. She quickly shouted out, "I didn't lose that square immortal furnace. It was stolen by someone else." She clenched her teeth, twisting the truth and saying, "The other party is an alchemist in the black field that no one dares to approach. I am not her match. She saw the square immortal furnace and forcefully stole it away. Master, give me some time. I will definitely take that square immortal furnace back." As Feng Wuan spoke to her, she fiercely clenched her teeth. Losing to Luo Qingtong this time was the greatest shame of her life. Not only had she been humiliated and crushed in front of everyone, but she had also lost her treasure. She thought about how she had always wanted to break through to become an alchemist, but the square immortal furnace could actually help her become one. She felt a burst of regret in her heart. "Blackfield alchemist?" Hearing Feng Wuan's words, that wisp of blue smoke instantly stopped. "She's actually someone from the Black Field?" As that wisp of blue smoke spoke of the Black Field, there was a deep dread in her voice. Feng Wuan lowered her head, her eyes dark and gloomy. Just like this wisp of blue smoke disdained everything in the True Spill continent. However, towards the Black Field, dark supremacy, she was extremely afraid of the Black Field. With such fear, how could Feng Wuan not have suspicions? The strength of Ming Zun in the Black Field was definitely beyond her imagination. That was why Feng Wuan was so obsessed with Yi Qianxian. Otherwise, with her arrogance, why would she be so persistent with a man who spoke so bluntly to her and didn't even want to meet her? "Yes, Master, the other party is highly valued by the Black Field's underworld supremacy. He has a revered status in the Black Field. I was truly powerless and was unable to protect the square immortal cauldron. Please forgive me, Master." Since he's from the Black Field, then forget it." The wisp of green smoke snorted coldly when he heard this. Then he said, "Fortunately, the things inside the divine cauldron are not things that ordinary people can obtain. Even if they fall into the other party's hands, it won't be a big deal. But you still have to get that divine cauldron back as soon as possible. Don't disappoint me again." "Yes, Master, please rest assured." Feng Wuan lowered his eyes and said. Seeing the wisp of green smoke disappear in front of him, Feng Wuan slowly stood up with his hand on his chest. He raised his hand to wipe off the bloodstains on the side of his lips. His eyes were filled with a sinister light. Evil Dr. Gui Tong. How long until 7th Imperial Uncle and the others arrive? She transmitted her voice to the person outside the door. The 7th Imperial Uncle and the others have already traveled day and night. They should arrive at the Great Chu sacred capital within 3 to 5 days. The guard outside the door said respectfully. Very good. Let them move faster. She must have the Great Chu sacred dynasty in her hands. When the two dynasties merged, she would have the opportunity and bargaining chips to settle the score with evil Dr. Gui Tong. Evil Dr. Gui Tong, don't think that just because you have the Blackfield's underworld supremacy protecting you, I can't do anything to you. That square immortal cauldron, I must get it back. The things you took from me and the humiliation you gave me, I will definitely return them all. Chapter 733. While Feng Wuan was inwardly cursing in his heart, Luo Qingtong had already brought Little Pig to the depths of the mountains outside the Blackfield main city. This place should be about done. Luo Qingtong looked around. She had come out to concoct pills. According to the records she had read before, this youthful rejuvenation pill was already considered an immortal pill. Luo Qingtong didn't know what grade of pill it was in this strange world. Thinking of the tribulation lightning she had attracted when she first started concocting pills, Luo Qingtong felt that it was necessary for her to find a secluded place to concoct pills. As for the Blackfield main city's City Lord mansion, although it was safe, it was too big of a target. Moreover, people die for wealth and birds die for food. Although the Blackfield's deterrence was great, it couldn't withstand the temptation of greed. If someone really wanted to take the risk, the Blackfield main city's City Lord mansion wouldn't be safe. After all, who knew how many hidden experts there were in the Blackfield main city? Luo Qingtong had found the heavenly water jade heart lotus for her grandfather, so she naturally wouldn't allow any mistakes to occur during this concoction. Therefore, after some consideration, she came to the mountain range outside the Blackfield main city. The mountains here were stacked on top of each other. Luo Qingtong's eyes flickered with blood-red light. Soon, she found a suitable place for concocting pills. Luo Qingtong set up a formation in the surroundings. Then, she raised her hand and took out the square immortal cauldron. Whoosh! The square immortal cauldron shrank in Luo Qingtong's palm. It was only the size of a palm. However, when it was placed on the ground, it instantly grew with the wind. With a whoosh, it became dozens of meters tall. The ancient and boundless aura around it spread out in all directions as it grew. What's the origin of this immortal cauldron? Luo Qingtong looked at Little Pig and asked. This fellow had been asking her to take down the divine cauldron ever since the cauldron appeared. He seemed to be very familiar with it. You don't know this, but legend has it that this divine cauldron is a treasure left behind by a divine king. The treasure left behind by that divine king is inside, Little Pig said mysteriously. And that's not the most important thing. Most importantly, it was said that this treasure contained clues related to the God King's inheritance and treasure trove. But after so many years, no one has found it. So you know how precious this divine cauldron is? That heavenly doctor definitely doesn't know how precious this divine cauldron is. Otherwise, she definitely wouldn't compare this divine cauldron with you. Little Pig chuckled mischievously as he spoke. Everyone has gone crazy searching for this thing outside. I never thought that it would appear in the true Spill continent. You're lucky to have met someone who doesn't know what's good for you. If that heavenly doctor knew that this divine cauldron was such a treasure, yet she gave it to you herself, I wonder how much blood she would vomit. Who told her to be so arrogant? Now she was a fool, wasn't she? Little Pig was amused as he thought about this. He had been angry at that heavenly doctor's provocation, but now, he wished that there would be more fools like her, who would complain about having too many treasures. Divine King's treasure? Luo Qingtong looked at the square immortal cauldron, her eyes flashing. Her eyes instantly turned as red as blood. Technique activated. In this blood red, Luo Qingtong saw that there were 3 layers underneath the square immortal cauldron. Chapter 734. However, those things and the interlayers were filled with a dense energy. Luo Qingtong couldn't see it clearly at all. She had only activated her eye technique for a while before she felt a piercing pain in her head. The light in her eyes dimmed in an instant. There are indeed things inside, but I'm not strong enough to take them out for the time being. Let's wait until later, Luo Qingtong said as she deactivated her eye technique. After a while, her eyes returned to normal. We're not in a hurry anyway. The divine cauldron is already in our hands. When your strength increases in the future, we can take those things out, Little Pig said. Even if we take them out now, you might not be able to use them. Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes slightly. Let's refine pills first. As she spoke, she raised her hand and set up one array formation after another around her. Following her movements, one array formation after another took shape. First layer array, second layer array, third layer array, sixth layer array. Luo Qingtong set up the strongest array she could and let Little Pig stand guard at the side. Then she began to refine pills. With this square immortal cauldron, Luo Qingtong no longer had to worry about the cauldron exploding. She only had to pay attention to the changes in the medicinal power. Because she only had one stalk of heavenly water jade heart lotus, Luo Qingtong was very careful when refining pills. Swoosh! She activated the eye technique in her eyes and stared at the huge cauldron at all times. Following the changes in the medicinal power of each ball, her hands' movements constantly changed. Stalk after stalk of medicinal herbs were purified into medicinal liquid by her, and thrown into the square immortal cauldron to undergo a second fusion. Streams of rich heaven and earth energy were absorbed into the square immortal cauldron. As the time for Luo Qingtong's elixir refinement progressed, dark clouds started to gather in the sky. Those dark clouds shrouded the valley she was in layer by layer. The dark clouds pressed down on the city, threatening to destroy it. A storm was coming. As for the other places, it was cloudless. What's going on? Near the mountain range, many people looked at this scene in amazement. At this moment, on a mountainside not far from the canyon where Luo Qingtong was refining pills, a handsome youth bathed in blood suddenly emerged from behind a huge rock. The man's face was gorgeous, and he had both the feminine charm of a woman and the masculine aura of a man. He had a pair of sword-like eyebrows that were slanted upwards. They were obviously extremely robust, but the corners of his eyes were filled with a beautiful color. There was a mole under the corner of her eye, which made her even more charming. What's that? His blood-stained fingers were propped up on the boulder. His aura fluctuated between strong and weak. His breathing was sometimes heavy and sometimes weak. Anyone could see that he was already an arrow at the end of its flight. The birth of a treasure? Or something else? Looking at the scene of the black clouds pressing down on the city, the light in Yu Sihuang's eyes kept changing. In the next second, he suddenly gritted his teeth and rushed toward the area covered by the black clouds. No matter what it was very likely to be his only chance of survival in his current situation. Rumble. As Luo Qingtong continued to add medicinal power into the cauldron, the heaven and earth energy contained in the square immortal cauldron was already extremely large. As for the black clouds in the sky, they were hanging lower and lower. Chapter 735. Holy **T. Where did this woman find this pill recipe? This tribulation cloud is so scary. Little Pig stared dumbfoundedly at the incomparably thick black clouds in the sky that were about to press down on their heads. Even when Luo Qingtong refined the Spirit Awakening pill for the first time, such a terrifying tribulation cloud didn't appear. At that time, the tribulation cloud only appeared after her pill had taken shape. Now the pill hadn't even taken shape, but it was already gathering? He didn't know if that woman would be able to withstand it. However, with the life and death yin-yang sword, she should be fine, right? It's best if she's fine. Little Pig hadn't recovered his strength from the last time he revealed himself. If something happened to Luo Qingtong now, it would be troublesome. If he forced himself to reveal himself, he might suck her dry and severely damage her foundation. While Little Pig was thinking, Luo Qingtong raised her hand and threw the last drop of heavenly jade heart lotus medicinal liquid into the cauldron. Because she didn't need to worry about the cauldron exploding, Luo Qingtong refined all the medicinal ingredients she used this time. This way, A successful pill would have a higher retention rate of medicinal efficacy and better effects. Luo Qingtong naturally used all her strength to refine the pill for Luo Qingtong's grandfather. Swoosh! She threw the last drop of medicinal liquid in her hand forward. With a boom, the entire square immortal cauldron trembled slightly. In the next second, a five-colored aura suddenly spread out from the cauldron. Then more and more five-colored aura suddenly rushed out and condensed above the cauldron. At the same time, the heaven and earth energy in the cauldron suddenly contracted. Under the effect of some mysterious heaven and earth law, it changed the medicinal properties of the balls of medicinal efficacy and fused them together to form an even more powerful medicinal effect. Immortal Qi. Oh my God! Little Pig was completely dumbfounded as he looked at the five-colored light above the cauldron. He knew Luo Qingtong's pill was definitely not ordinary. But Immortal Qi, it was too terrifying. This woman really didn't play her cards according to the rules. Who could refine an immortal pill at her level? Even if she was using a divine cauldron, it would be the same. At most, it would have a higher retention rate, a stronger effect, and a higher success rate. But this immortal pill, the fusion of medicinal properties was extremely complex and terrifying. How did Luo Qingtong do it? Little Pig had always thought that as Luo Qingtong's cultivation increased, her frightening ability would weaken. She wouldn't be able to scare him so much that his little heart would beat wildly again. But looking at it now, it was nothing. This woman was always so perverted and terrifying. Fortunately, her strength was still weak. Otherwise, wouldn't she be swept away in minutes? It had never seen such a perverted and terrifying woman. His talent was as if he was born for cultivation. Luo Qingtong had no time to pay attention to Little Pig. The amount of heaven and earth energy gathered in the four-sided immortal cauldron had reached a terrifying level. If this was not a four-sided immortal cauldron, it would have exploded again. Luo Qingtong focused all her attention on the four-sided immortal cauldron. She paid close attention to the fusion of medicinal efficacy and the situation of the heaven and earth energy pouring into it. At this time, she couldn't afford to make any mistakes. Otherwise, this huge ball of medicinal efficacy would be wasted. Rumble. The clouds in the sky were getting lower and lower. The rumbling sound inside was getting louder and clearer. Chapter 736. This is. Yu Huang was shocked as he looked at the girl sitting cross-legged on the opposite side of the mountain wall. In front of her was a huge cauldron that was constantly emitting multicolored aura. Immortal aura? This young girl, she's concocting pills? The dark clouds in the sky were caused by her refining the immortal spiritual pills? Yu Huang was shocked. The girl seemed to be only 15 or 16 years old. Her face was like a peach blossom, and her beauty could topple cities. Her red dress was extremely enchanting. Sitting cross-legged and surrounded by the immortal aura emitted by the cauldron, she was like a goddess that descended from the 9 heavens. Even though Yu Huang had seen all kinds of enchanting and charming women, he was still shocked by Luo Qingtong's beauty. The moment Yu Huang broke in, Luo Qingtong immediately sensed him. She didn't expect him to be able to ignore the array she set up and directly break in. Luo Qingtong could not find the time to do so and immediately shouted. Little Pig also reacted when he heard Luo Qingtong shout. He rushed toward Yu Huang, who broke in. He didn't know how this person avoided Luo Qingtong's array and broke in, but Luo Qingtong was at the crucial moment of refining pills. She absolutely couldn't be disturbed, especially when this pill was refined by Luo Qingtong for Luo Qingtong's grandfather to consume. Little Pig didn't dare to imagine the consequences if she was disturbed and failed at the last step. Luo Qingtong didn't flip out easily, but once she did, it was indescribably terrifying. Bang! Little Pig's 4 hooves stomped on the ground. His pink body instantly turned into a bolt of lightning and rushed toward Yu Huang. Wait! Seeing Little Pig rushing over, Yu Huang was startled and wanted to say something. Just at this moment, there was a boom. The array that Luo Qingtong had set up in the canyon was triggered. There's an array here. He's inside. Blast this formation open. Voices could be heard from outside. Luo Qingtong's brows furrowed slightly as her gaze swept past the area enveloped by the formation. Immediately, she saw numerous figures surrounding the canyon. Those people were obviously together. Each and every one of them had an extremely powerful aura. Each and every one of them was above the martial emperor level. Were these people chasing after this man? Luo Qingtong's eyes swept over the bloodstains on Yu Xihuang's body. Right at this moment. Get out of my way! A voice suddenly came from outside. In the next second, boom! A majestic sound rang out, and in an instant, the entire valley shook. Saint Realm Expert. Luo Qingtong's eyes narrowed as she felt the boundless aura. Her gaze coldly swept over Yu Xihuang's direction. Then her gaze fixed on the entrance of the canyon. There, a hole had been torn in the array she had set up. A group of people barged in. Haha! Yu Xihuang, you can't run away, right? The group of people's voices were extremely arrogant, especially the mustached man at the front. He had a complacent expression on his face. His long and narrow eyes were like a snake as he stared at the gorgeous young man bathed in blood. Chapter 737. Immortal Pill. Seeing the cauldron in front of Luo Qingtong emitting a colorful aura, the mustached man was surprised at first, but then he was overjoyed. Haha, I didn't expect to meet a genius alchemist here. And she's even refining an immortal pill. The mustached man's face was full of greed. Immortal pill. This was a legendary medicinal pill. In the entire True Spill continent, there weren't many alchemy grandmasters that could refine such a pill. At least, he had never heard of such a thing. Who would have thought that chasing after Yu Xihuang to this dark cloud-covered place would actually be able to bump into such a genius alchemist? This young girl was obviously a natural alchemist. At such a young age, she was actually able to refine such a pill. Moreover, she was able to refine such an immortal pill. He was afraid that even evil Dr. Ghost Eye, who was highly sought after in the Black Field, didn't have such strength. He didn't expect to run into her. Yu Xihuang, I didn't expect that before you died, you would bring me such a great opportunity. Haha. This alchemist, along with the immortal pill she refined, I want it all. The mustached man waved his hand and barked out coldly. You guys are in charge of killing him. Today, the future overlord of the 3 islands and 7 lands will fall here. As he spoke, he laughed and rushed towards Luo Qingtong. Little beauty. He looked at the fairy-like young girl sitting in front of the cauldron, his face filled with unspeakable pride and lust. From now on you'll follow me. I want the pill and I also want the person. Luo Qingtong looked at the mustached man's figure rushing towards her, a bloody light flashing in her eyes. It had been a long time since someone dared to say such death-seeking words in front of her. The last person who dared to look at her with such eyes. Their bones had already turned to ashes, right? Luo Qingtong coldly looked at the mustached man's sage realm fluctuations, then suddenly sent a sound transmission to Yu Xihuang. With your injuries, how many breaths of time can you last? Luo Qingtong's voice was faint, without a trace of anxiety or panic. It was as if the man with the handlebar mustache wasn't targeting her, and as if what she was facing wasn't a crisis at all. However, Yu Xihuang knew that with the young girl's current age and talent, if she was captured by the people in front of him, she would definitely be imprisoned until she died. She would be reduced to a forbidden puppet, living a fate worse than death. 100 breaths. Yu Xihuang calculated for a moment. With his current weakened heart meridians, and his heavily injured appearance, he could at most stop the other party for 100 breaths. However, if you give me the immortal pills in your cauldron, I can kill them all. Yu Xihuang gently caressed the mole at the corner of his eye. His eyes were shining as he looked at Luo Qingtong's direction. His enchanting face was filled with a domineering aura. I don't need a single breath. As long as he could cure the old illness in his heart meridian, killing these people would not take more than a breath. Yu Xihuang's lips carried a smile, enchanting and charming. But his eyes were filled with ruthlessness. If he didn't have an old illness, how could he be taken advantage of by a group of jumping clowns and forced into a desperate situation? As long as he could recover, these people would all die, including those who betrayed him. The pills I refined are useless for the injury in your heart meridian. You don't have to think about it. Seeing through Yu Xihuang's thoughts, Luo Qingtong's voice was faint. Chapter 738. Good. Yu Huang's eyes were burning. He wouldn't believe Luo Qingtong's words if it was any other time. After all, how could a girl who was only a martial king save him from a group of martial spirit realm and a sage realm expert? Not to mention him. Even she herself would find it hard to save herself. But at this moment, Yu Huang wanted to believe the girl in front of him. So what if she was lying to him? Anyway, he was already a person who was about to die. If he could prevent these people from getting what they wanted before he died, he would lose a genius alchemist and an immortal-grade elixir. Why not? As Yu Huang thought of this, the smile on his face became even more devilish. But the light in his eyes became even colder. Boom. He raised his hand and pointed at a certain point in his heart. In an instant, his aura exploded again. His aura, which was originally so weak that it was flickering between light and darkness, completely exploded at this moment. In the next second, his figure was like a butterfly's wings. His sleeves fluttered as he rushed toward the mustached man who was rushing toward Luo Qingtong. Your opponent is me. As he spoke, Yu Huang's figure had already blocked in front of the mustached man. Boom. His purple robe was soaked in blood, which made him look devilish. With a swoosh, he opened his sleeves and his aura was like a wave. In an instant, he blocked the mustached man's path. Humph. Yu Huang, you're already an arrow at the end of its flight. How long can you last by forcefully increasing your strength with a forbidden technique? After 100 breaths, you'll die a more miserable death. Being blocked by him, the man with the handlebar mustache was furious. He raised his hand and attacked him. Rumble. In the sky, one after another, violent and terrifying auras exploded. The two's auras collided, and there was a momentum that surpassed the thunder and lightning in the sky. Under such circumstances, Little Pig's figure also jumped up and rushed toward the martial spirit realm experts who were rushing toward Yu Huang. Little Pig's body was small, but its speed was as fast as lightning. Together with Yu Huang's attack, it forcefully stalled the opponent. Rumble. Explosions rang out one after another in the sky. Luo Qingtong was completely focused on the square immortal cauldron in front of her. The medicinal power inside was boundless and had already reached its peak. 1 breath, 2 breaths, 3 breaths, dozens of breaths. Boom. Boom. One after another, the power of heaven and earth poured down. The fusion of the medicinal powers inside was also becoming more and more intense. In the next second, boom! After an incomparably loud explosion, the entire four-sided immortal cauldron shook. Rumble! In the blink of an eye, clouds began to move in all directions. Streaks of 5-colored chi gathered above the square immortal cauldron's cauldron. Above it, a giant auspicious immortal beast was formed. Elixir chi into spirit. The immortal pill was formed. At the same time, rumble. The black clouds that had almost reached the ground were rolling violently. Inside, bolts of lightning that were thicker than an adult's thigh were brewing. Immortal pills. Seeing the immortal beast emerge from the four-sided immortal cauldron, the mustached man revealed a greedy and pleasantly surprised smile. I didn't expect her to actually succeed in refining it. Haha, this immortal pill is mine. As he spoke, the aura around his body exploded. In the next second, bang! Yu Huang, who was originally relying on the last bit of his aura and strength to forcefully gather his strength, could no longer hold on and spat out a mouthful of blood. Chapter 739. Bang! His figure smashed heavily onto the ground. At the same time, the man with the handlebar mustache had already rushed into Luo Qingtong. Haha! Immortal elixir. Looking at the 5-colored aura that was continuously emitted from the cauldron, the man with the handlebar mustache was extremely pleased. Hurry up and leave! Yu Huang gritted his teeth and spat out blood as he shouted coldly. His beautiful and enchanting face, which was as pretty as a woman's, was filled with anxiety. The girl's strength was only at the martial king realm, and was not a match for the sage realm. Her talent was outstanding and her strength was not obvious. Once she was caught by the other party, she would definitely have a miserable ending. Yu Huang was not a person who had tender feelings for the fairer sex, but for some reason, looking at the girl in front of him, He did not want her to become someone else's exclusive property. Or rather, such a charming girl should not be reduced to someone else's exclusive property. Hurry up and leave. He struggled to get up from the ground, but just as he got up halfway, he fell back down with a loud bang. The injuries on his body were too severe. Just now he had forcefully stimulated his acupoints and used a forbidden technique. The fact that he was not dead now was already proof of his strength. Boom. Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes as she watched the man with the handlebar mustache rush towards her. The Sage Realm aura rippling from the other party's body was shocking. If it was any other time, she might have avoided the sharp edge. But now, Luo Qingtong raised her head to look at the huge dragon snake lightning dancing in the sky. The moment the man with the handlebar mustache rushed over, she opened the lid of the square immortal cauldron. Rumble. The dense immortal spiritual energy that was originally bound in the square immortal cauldron instantly surged out. In the sky, the Piltdown tribulation lightning that had sensed the aura of the immortal elixir, but could not pinpoint its exact location suddenly descended. Those violent lightning bolts that were thicker than an adult's arm danced wildly. Boom boom boom. Piltdown tribulation lightning. Looking at the thick lightning bolts that were like dragons and snakes in the sky, and feeling the violent power of the laws of heaven and earth that was dispersing from them, the man with the handlebar mustache's expression changed drastically. What was going on? When he had rushed over, he hadn't felt the tribulation lightning. He had thought that the immortal elixir refined by the young girl had no tribulation lightning for some reason. Why did he suddenly fall down? However, even as he watched the tribulation lightning descend, the mustached man did not retreat at all. Immortal spiritual pills were hard to come by, and this young girl who could refine them was even harder to come by. He had said that if he wanted the pill, he also wanted the person. He could still withstand 2 strikes of this tribulation lightning. He absolutely could not let the person and the medicinal pill escape. With that in mind, he didn't retreat. Instead, he sped up and rushed towards Luo Qingtong. Little beauty, come with me. He looked at Luo Qingtong with a lewd smile. While grabbing the elixir with one hand, he also grabbed Luo Qingtong with the other hand. Sure. Luo Qingtong's eyes flashed with a bloody light as she watched his perverted hand coming for her. In the next second, she slowly broke into a smile. That smile on her lips was peerless, enchanting, and absolutely moving. I'll go with you. The smile on Luo Qingtong's lips was beautiful. She raised her eyebrows at the mustached man. Then, with a flip of her lily-white hand, the youthful rejuvenation elixir was grasped in her hand. Chapter 740. What? The man with the handlebar mustache grabbed nothing but air, and before he could recover from his shock, the man with the handlebar mustache grabbed the air. Instantly, a black and white long blade appeared in Luo Qingtong's hand as she flew towards the Piltdown tribulation lightning. The life and death sword. Rumble. As the life and death sword appeared, the terrifying bolts of lightning were instantly absorbed by the life and death sword in Luo Qingtong's hand. Buzz. The divine runes on the life and death sword in Luo Qingtong's hand lit up. In an instant, terrifying power circulated on the sword. Luo Qingtong's eyes were cold. She looked down at the shocked man with the handlebar mustache below. She raised the life and death sword in her hand and waved it. The first move of the heaven-conquering art, seizing heaven's fortune. Boom. As Luo Qingtong launched this attack, in an instant, the sky changed color and the wind and clouds surged. The black clouds in the sky surged violently. In the next second, a sword light cut through the sky like the breaking of dawn or the waves of the sea. From the edge of the horizon, a world-shocking strike came from afar. Rumble. The entire sky was almost split into 2 halves by this sword. The black clouds in the sky were suddenly split apart. Above the sky, traces of the blue sky and the white sun appeared. The sun shone down from the thick clouds. That ray of sword light seemed to have brushed against the sunlight as it heavily cleaved onto the mustached man's body. Its momentum was vast and its form was turbulent. It was as vast as the sun, breaking through the sky. This was the heaven-conquering art. Ah! The sword light from the life and death sword, which had absorbed the power of the heavenly Tao Pill thunder, was even more powerful than the sword light that Luo Qingtong had produced when she had absorbed Yi Qianxian's power. The man with the handlebar mustache did not expect that a girl in the martial king realm, who was like an ant to him, would launch such a powerful and terrifying attack. In just an instant, his body was sliced into two by the sword light. Half of his face was still filled with surprise, while the other half was filled with horror. These two emotions were intertwined on his face. In the next second, his body fell heavily to the ground, and there was no more sound coming from him. The experts in the martial spirit realm that he had brought with him had been chopped into ashes by this sword light. Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes. Her blood-red eyes flickered as she floated to the ground. At this moment, "Be careful," Yu Sihuang's voice suddenly sounded. "He's a soul cultivator, who cultivates the power of Yin soul." As he spoke, an illusory figure suddenly appeared on the corpse of the man with a mustache. Instantly, it charged towards Luo Qingtong with a ferocious expression. "Bitch, you destroyed my body. I want to imprison you and ravage you every day." 10,000-man wheel. The face of the man with the handlebar mustache twisted as he screamed and rushed toward Luo Qingtong. A soul cultivator who cultivated the power of Yin soul could keep his consciousness intact after death and become a ghost cultivator. However, his saint realm cultivation would be destroyed. Most importantly, he would lose his body. Unless he had a heaven-defying opportunity to enter the ghost god realm and regain his body, he would never be able to transcend. At this moment, the man with the handlebar mustache hated Luo Qingtong to death. Chapter 741. A dignified sage realm expert was killed by a martial king realm expert. No one would believe it if they heard about it. However, it just so happened. If he knew this slut had such a method, he would have killed this slut the moment he barged in without caring about Yu Sihuang, who was about to die. The mustached man thought resentfully as he rushed toward Luo Qingtong with a shriek. Although he didn't have the strength of a sage realm expert, his Yin soul energy wasn't any weaker than before. Other than the fact that he couldn't use the energy of heaven and earth, his strength was the same as before. The Pil-Dao tribulation lightning that Luo Qingtong borrowed had already dissipated. At this moment, the dark clouds in the sky had already dispersed. Currently, her cultivation was only at the martial emperor realm. F***CK. This bastard is actually an expert who specializes in Yin soul energy. This is going to be troublesome. The moment Luo Qingtong succeeded in refining the pill, Little Pig quickly hid to the side to watch the show. He knew Luo Qingtong's temperament. She always kept her word. She said she wanted to save that man, which meant she had a way to deal with these people. However, he didn't expect Luo Qingtong to be so powerful. She actually thought of using the Pil-Dao tribulation lightning to deal with that sage realm expert. Luo Qingtong dared to use the life and death dual polarity sword that was engraved with God's runes. Otherwise, she would have been struck to death by the Pil-Dao tribulation lightning. However, the effect was pretty good. It was just that the mustache man actually cultivated Yin soul force on top of that, which really caught him off guard. Little Pig's heart was burning with anxiety, and he instantly rushed towards Luo Qingtong's side. "No, even if I have to force myself to appear, I can't let anything happen to Luo Qingtong." As he ran toward Luo Qingtong, his body emitted a burst of light. An inverted pentagram pattern appeared on his little pink butt. Just as the pentagram pattern was about to appear on Luo Qingtong's forehead, there was a boom. A snow-white long tail suddenly emerged from the void around Luo Qingtong and coiled around the mustached man's soul that was rushing toward Luo Qingtong. Boom. Before the man with the handlebar mustache could react, his body was instantly bound to the spot. "Aya! I forgot about that little white ball." Little Pig looked at this scene and suddenly used his little hoof to slap his head. What snowball? Golden flowing fire fox. Soul-devouring beast. It was currently in the midst of a metamorphosis, and would not reject anything that possessed soul power, especially soul bodies that contained powerful soul power. No matter how powerful that mustached man's soul, it was still a soul. Wasn't a snowball to eat to die? Snowball, snowball, snowballs, snowballs, little snowball. The mustached man's soul was shocked. He felt that his body was no longer under his control. That long milky white tail firmly bound him. Even though it wasn't very strong, he couldn't break free. I've met my nemesis. The mustached man's face instantly turned ashen. He never imagined that Luo Qingtong would use the power of the Pildao heavenly lightning to kill him while he was still alive. Even after he died, he still couldn't escape the fate of death. Feeling the devouring power emitted by the long tail and the trembling feeling as if he had met his natural enemy, the mustached man's face was filled with despair. He was a dignified sage realm expert. How could he die in such a sullen manner? He couldn't even keep his soul. Chapter 742. Swish. With a fierce tug of that long tail, that mustached man's soul instantly disappeared on the spot, sucked into the void. His soul had been destroyed. His soul had truly been destroyed. Ah, that mustached man's voice was mournful. I won't let you off. Slut, I've already sent your image back to the sect through a soul technique. Just wait for our blood moon sect's revenge. We'll definitely make you suffer a horrible death. Ah. His miserable shriek disappeared on the spot, and soon, not a single sound was heard. Through the connection in her mind, Luo Qingtong could clearly see that the mustached man's soul was directly dragged into the 9-layer exquisite pagoda by the sleeping snowball. With a smack, it was eaten clean. And after absorbing his soul power, Snowball quietly grew a little. Very clearly, that mustached man's soul had completely turned into fertilizer for Snowball's growth. Blood Moon Sect. Withdrawing her consciousness from the 9-layer exquisite pagoda, Luo Qingtong slightly raised her eyebrows. In her mind, she didn't have any knowledge about this sect. The other party shouldn't be from the 4 great sacred dynasties. Then could they be from another region? Luo Qingtong pondered in her heart. At this moment, Yu Huang, who was lying on the ground, suddenly vomited a mouthful of blood. In an instant, the wounds all over his body burst open, and blood flowed out. But after 100 breaths of time, the forbidden technique in his body backfired, and his previous injuries exploded. At this moment, he was on the verge of death. Bang! His body fell to the ground, and in an instant he lost consciousness. He's still breathing. Luo Qingtong swept over, probing his aura, and raised her hand to feed him a bottle of medicinal liquid. Then, after thinking for a moment, she narrowed her eyes, and with a flicker of blood-red light, she saw through his heart veins. Yu Huang's heart veins had old injuries. She didn't know when he got injured, but at this moment, the 2 heart veins were completely glued together. With such injuries, it was no wonder that he was unable to display his full strength. Luo Qingtong thought of the scene where he was seriously injured but still stopped the mustached man, and the group of martial spirit realm experts. She immediately raised her eyebrows. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. The mustached man probably thought that this man was dead for sure, so he dared to shout for revenge before he died. Luo Qingtong looked indifferent. Revenge? All right, she would give him a chance to take revenge. But it was not for them, it was for this man. If this man was fine, would the Blood Moon sect still have the time to find trouble with her? Luo Qingtong raised her hand and fed Yu Huang a bottle of life-saving medicine. He waited until all the wounds on his body had healed and his aura had stabilized. She immediately took out a dagger and slit open his chest. She began to treat the injury on his heart meridian. Luo Qingtong began to peel off Yu Huang's 2 arteries. This man usually drank a lot of medicinal liquid, but this kind of injury had to be removed directly. No amount of medicinal liquid would be of any use. But how many people dared to perform this kind of surgery? Not to mention, it involved the heart meridian. The slightest carelessness would cause the heart meridian to break, and it would be a death sentence. All right, let's go. After spending almost 2 hours, Luo Qingtong finally peeled off Yu Huang's 2 arteries. Chapter 743. Empress Dowager Yanxi. Above the main hall, a group of people greeted Empress Dowager Yanxi, Great Yang's 7th prince. Looking at the arrogant middle-aged man at the front, Empress Dowager Yanxi's voice was cold. 7th prince has come from afar, and must be very tired. Please rest early. The ambition in the other party's eyes was obvious. She was disgusted and did not want to talk to him. However, what's there to be tired about coming here to marry the Empress Dowager? Looking at Empress Dowager Yanxi in the main hall, the seventh prince of Yong heard the meaning in her words. The light in his eyes was cold. B***tch, I gave you face, but you didn't want it. He sneered and said slowly, it's the Empress Dowager who works day and night for state affairs. This prince really can't bear it. But it doesn't matter. It won't be long before this prince can share the Empress Dowager's worries. At that time, the Empress Dowager won't have to work so hard. As soon as his words came out, the expressions of everyone in the main hall changed. Impudent. Seventh prince, what do you mean by this? Above the main hall, the officials were indignant. The other party's words clearly wanted to encroach on the throne of Great Chu. His words were so obvious, so open and aboveboard. He really didn't put Great Chu in his eyes at all. Is there anything wrong with what this prince said? Great Yong's seventh prince looked at them coldly and said proudly, in the future as the Empress Dowager's husband, this prince naturally can't bear to see this prince's wife so tired. These things will naturally be taken care of by this prince on her behalf. What's wrong? When he said this, Empress Dowager Yanxi's voice had already sounded coldly. Great Yong's seventh prince really doesn't need to worry so much. The groom selection hasn't started yet. My husband may not be you. It's still too early for you to say these words. Great Yong's ambition was obvious. Even if Empress Dowager Yanxi randomly chose someone from the empire's family, she would not let them succeed. However, Empress Dowager's words are wrong. Great Yong's seventh prince's expression was cold. This prince admires the Empress Dowager wholeheartedly. The world knows that I even gave up my title in Great Yong dynasty. This prince believes that everyone is willing to fulfill my wish. Seeing this prince's deep affection, they will definitely not compete with this prince again. So, he raised his eyebrows and looked at Empress Dowager Yanxi and the ministers of Great Chu. He sneered, Empress Dowager, be prepared that you can only choose this king. Ha! As he spoke, he laughed loudly and led the crowd away. Your Majesty. Looking at his back as he left, all the courtiers looked anxious as they all looked at Empress Dowager Yanxi. Great Yong's seventh prince's words clearly had a deeper meaning. Clearly, he was determined to win the Great Chu this time. What to do? Empress Dowager, why don't we send out the army and directly? A general said at this moment. Then, under Empress Dowager Yanxi's gaze, he quietly lost his voice. Empress Dowager Yanxi closed her eyes slightly. Sending out a large army would naturally solve the problem once and for all. However, Great Yong's seventh prince had been killed here by Great Chu's army. This would inevitably cause Great Yong to mobilize its troops. Wouldn't that give Great Yong an excuse to attack? Great Yong's seventh prince dared to be so arrogant, and speak such arrogant words in this hall. Wasn't he relying on the fact that they couldn't do anything to him? Not to mention sending out a large army. Even if they sent out experts, they couldn't kill him. Otherwise, Great Yong would immediately mobilize its troops. Empress Dowager Yanxi had already received the battle report from the border. Great Yong's army had already begun to assemble. Just after Great Yong's seventh prince moved, it went without saying who they were targeting. Therefore, Great Yong's seventh prince couldn't be killed. Chapter 744. Thinking of this, Empress Dowager Yanxi's heart was filled with hatred. It's all because of that bastard Prince Ning. The other party is going all out. Now I don't know what to do. If it weren't for this, I wouldn't. Old Master Luo's figure appeared in Empress Dowager Yanxi's heart. That day, after she ordered people to send Old Master Luo and Luo Qingtong away, she couldn't bear to abandon them and quietly chased after them. But in the end she didn't catch up. She didn't know where they went. Empress Dowager Yanxi secretly checked the surrounding roads, but she didn't get any news of them. Perhaps they were completely disheartened and left here with a new face? With her granddaughter's ability, this was indeed very likely. Thinking of this, Empress Dowager Yanxi suddenly felt sad. This was good, they didn't need to be involved in this dispute, and she would also have no more worries. Empress Dowager Yanxi pursed her lips. Prepare for the worst. If there's really nothing we can do, I will sacrifice myself. The foundation of Great Chu must not fall into our hands, let alone Great Yong's hands. Without her, the Empress Dowager, Great Yong's conspiracy this time naturally couldn't succeed. Empress Dowager, you can't. When the courtiers heard this, they were shocked and hurriedly called out. Empress Dowager, you must not have this idea. If you don't stay in the palace, how can we protect the young emperor? Empress Dowager, you can't. Yes. Empress Dowager, if you're not here, the foundation of Great Chu is no different from being destroyed. Great Yong's conspiracy failed this time. There will definitely be a next time. Without you, how can we live? Empress Dowager. A group of people knelt on the ground, crying and begging. We'll talk about it when the time comes. Empress Dowager Yanxi closed her eyes slightly, looking tired. She didn't want to do this. But if she didn't do this, Great Chu might not be able to escape this time, let alone next time. The disaster of stealing the country. She had received great kindness from the late emperor, so she must not let Great Chu's foundation be destroyed in her own hands. At the same time, in the sacred capital of Great Chu, where the people of Great Yong's sacred dynasty were staying. 7th Imperial Uncle. As soon as Lord Seven returned to his room, he heard a voice. He raised his head and saw Feng Wuan sitting at the table in the outer room. He was holding a blue and white teapot, and was slowly pouring tea. Uncle has returned from the Great Chu Imperial Palace? Feng Yuan tilted his head, and looked at the 7th Prince of Great Yong with a faint smile on his face. Haha! Great Yong's 7th Prince laughed heartily as he walked over. That's right, Imperial Uncle just came out of the Great Chu Imperial Palace. Humph! That Empress Dowager Yanxi of the Great Chu dynasty refused a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. This prince personally went to pay her a visit, but she only saw this prince once and wanted to chase me out. Why don't you think about her current situation? How much longer does she think she can stay in the limelight? The 7th Prince of Great Yong coldly stated. Originally, seeing that her looks were not bad, this prince was prepared to spare her life after entering Great Chu. Now it seems like there's no need for that. Unappreciative thing. He snorted coldly. Great Chu's Empress Dowager Yanxi's scheming ability is not weak. Feng Wuan looked at him with an indifferent expression. If Uncle wants a woman, I will naturally find one for you in the future. What can't you have? Don't keep a disaster like her. Chapter 745. These are the purine bodies that I recently found. They are all young girls and are most suitable for you to pluck. You can enjoy them to your heart's content. In addition, I have already made arrangements in the Great Chu Sacred Dynasty. Other than us, all the teams that came to search for a groom have been sniped. It is absolutely impossible for them to rush over. I will wait for the Great Chu Empress Dowager Yanxi to choose you. I must win the Great Chu. Feng Wuan's voice was cold. The 7th Prince of Great Yong laughed and said, with your arrangements, we are naturally foolproof. Just as he was feeling proud, Luo Qingtong's figure had already rushed back to the main city of the Black Field. Grandfather. Luo Qingtong came to Grandfather Luo's room and handed him the pill in her hand. After eating this pill, you can recover your youthful appearance and strength. Grandpa Luo was waiting anxiously in his room. His granddaughter had left for 3 days. He was very anxious. He did not know if the pill could be refined successfully. Rejuvenation. That was not something that could be done by ordinary people. Even if Grandfather Luo did not know anything about pills, he knew that his granddaughter would not refine an ordinary pill. Otherwise, why would she not refine it in the city lord's mansion but go outside? Obviously, she was afraid of being discovered. Grandfather Luo was anxious. He was not only worried about his granddaughter's safety, but also worried that the pill was too heaven-defying and could not be refined. In short, it was not good at all. After sitting for so long, his butt was almost worn out, and walking was almost worn through a layer of skin on the ground. Luo Qingtong finally came back. Girl, are you alright? Seeing Luo Qingtong return, the first thing he did was not to look at the pills but at Luo Qingtong. After confirming that Luo Qingtong did not suffer any injuries from refining the pill, he immediately let out a long sigh of relief. Then he looked at the pill. I'm fine. Luo Qingtong looked at him and smiled. Grandfather, quickly take this pill. Once the pill is integrated, you can recover your youth. Okay. Grandfather Luo did not say anything and directly swallowed the pill. In an instant, clumps of immortal qi emerged from his body, wrapping him into a large cocoon. Seeing this scene, Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows and immediately retreated. Then she had people guard this door to prevent people from inexplicably breaking in and disturbing the integration of the pill in Grandfather Luo's body. This pill was divided into 2 levels. The first was to restore one's appearance, and the second was to restore one's bodily functions. Grandfather Luo's break out of the cocoon. Of course, when he broke out of the cocoon, Luo Qingtong's new. Luo Qingtong, Luo's body, Luo's Luo. Luo's Luo's SSS Luo's S's Luo's Luo. Empress Dowager. A general bowed and knelt in front of Empress Dowager Yanxi and said in a deep voice, "All the teams have been attacked. It is estimated that they will not be able to reach the holy capital by the time of the competition." The general's expression was very serious. So far, only the Great Yong dynasty's 7th prince and his group had reached the holy capital. Chapter 746. This time, Great Yong really wanted to hold Great Chu completely in their hands. They actually used such a sinister plan. Empress Dowager Yanxi's voice was cold. She closed her eyes slightly. "I know you can leave." "Empress Dowager," the general said with a worried expression. "It's okay." Empress Dowager Yanxi's voice was cold. "Don't worry, I won't give up until the last moment. You don't have to worry that I will kill myself now," she said, her eyes slightly darkening. "I won't be defeated so easily. Leave." "Yes." The general acknowledged the order and left the room. Looking at his back, Empress Dowager Yanxi's lips twitched slightly, and then she looked out of the window. "Luotong, if I knew it would end like this, I wouldn't have driven you away." At least before she died, she could see him and her granddaughter again. Empress Dowager Yanxi originally thought that old Master Luo was too impulsive. For the sake of Great Chu, since the Empress Dowager's groom selection was released, and it was done by Ning Wang and the late emperor, she had to do it. At that time, she would pick out an ambitious person who was easy to control and make him a mere figurehead. In this way, the Empress Dowager's groom selection was just an empty talk. She wouldn't marry anyone, nor would she be with anyone else. But Luotong was too impulsive. Even if it was just an empty talk, he might not accept it. That was why she wanted to send him far away. This way, when the dust settled, she could go and find him again. But who would have thought, Great Yong's intervention turned this situation into a dead end for her. Ning Wang's goal was finally achieved. Even if he couldn't get the throne of Great Chu, he would destroy himself. This Great Chu, if not in his hands, would fall into the hands of others. Empress Dowager Yanxi slightly closed her eyes. If she had known, she wouldn't have sent Luotong away. They had been separated for decades, and once they met, the misunderstanding was cleared. In just a few days, they had to be separated again. This time, it was a separation of life and death. They would never meet again. Empress Dowager Yanxi took out the green wooden hairpin that she had always carried with her in her sleeve, and gently moved the tassels on it silently. Time passed day by day. 3 days later. Rumble. In the city lord's mansion of the Blackfield main city, there was a loud explosion. Then, a figure suddenly rushed out from a room in the city lord mansion of the Blackfield main city, and floated in the sky. "Haha. Qingtong. Qingtong. Come and take a look, Grandpa's strength has increased." "Haha." Grandpa Luo's loud voice resounded in the sky above the Blackfield city lord mansion. However, he could no longer call him Old Master Luo. At this moment, Grandfather Luo's face was resolute and handsome, and his entire body was brimming with an iron-blooded aura. The energy around his body was cleansing. He was already a martial emperor. This time, not only did Old Master Luo return to his youthful appearance, but his bodily functions were also instantly restored to their peak. His original strength of a martial king, under the effect of the enormous medicinal power, directly rose to the level of a martial emperor. In the future, his appearance would be fixed at this moment. Just like Empress Dowager Yanxi, he would never age again. Haha. Grandpa Luo laughed happily. He originally thought that he would have to protect Yanxi with his old and decrepit appearance for the rest of his life. Even if his strength increased in the future, it would be impossible for him to return to his youthful appearance. But he didn't expect that his granddaughter would directly refine such a heaven-defying elixir that completely reversed his fate. At this moment, Luo Tong could feel that his body was brimming with vitality. Chapter 747. Grandpa. Luo Qingtong heard the commotion and rushed over. When she saw old Master Luo laughing in the sky, she immediately laughed. Grandpa, congratulations. Haha. Congratulations to you. Grandfather Luo's face was full of joy. Coupled with his handsome and resolute face, there was an inexplicably cute contrast. He landed in front of Luo Qingtong and quickly said, Qingtong, how is your grandma? I'm young again. Let's go to your grandma. If we're late, my wife will run away with someone else. Grandfather Luo was anxious and pulled Luo Qingtong away. The latter hurriedly stopped him. Wait. Don't worry, Grandpa. You're not strong enough. Thinking of the news she received, Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes. Don't you want to marry my grandma with your own strength? Luo Qingtong looked at him and said, Grandpa, this is a rare opportunity. Empress Dowager is looking for a husband. As long as you can stand out, you can marry my grandma openly. Before she could finish her sentence, Grandpa Luo yelled at her anxiously. All right. You lass, can you stop keeping me in suspense? Hurry up. Tell me, what's the way? Even if I have to climb a mountain of swords or plunge into a sea of fire, Grandpa will go. Old Master Luo was too anxious just now, so he forgot about it. But, let's make it clear first. Will this hurt you? If it does, Grandpa won't improve his strength. Grandfather Luo pursed his lips and said, Anyway, your grandma. I'm fine as long as I can stay by her side. I'm not asking for anything. Io, what are you doing? Why are you taking off my clothes? I'm young now. Don't look at indecent things, you know? Grandfather Luo hugged his chest and struggled with all his might. Luo Qingtong was not in a good mood. Hurry up. With that figure of yours, I saw it when you ran out of the secret passage the last time. Even the scratches on your body were not missed. Grandfather Luo's face turned red. What do you know, you're just a child. Ah, stop. I'll do it myself. Old Master Luo tugged at his clothes. It took him a lot of effort to regain control. He quickly took off his clothes, then used his clothes to cover half of his upper body and said, Is this okay? Yes. Luo Qingtong almost could not hold back her laughter when she saw old Master Luo like this. That's enough. She pulled old Master Luo back to his room. Grandpa, bear with the pain. As Luo Qingtong spoke, she used her hand as a pen and poked an acupoint on old Master Luo's back. Following the drawing method of the soul map, streaks of blood-red light shot out from her eyes and slowly drew along old Master Luo's meridians. Every time he moved, old Master Luo felt as if a tendon was being pulled out of his body. Wang. Following Luo Qingtong's drawing, the power of heaven and earth in the surroundings all gathered towards her. The so-called borrowing spirit diagram was to use the human body as a refining tool and draw lines of inscription patterns on it. It would allow the human body to borrow the power of heaven and earth like a sacred weapon. This was the power of the sacred state. Luo Qingtong couldn't raise old Master Luo's strength infinitely, let alone raise his strength from the martial king realm to the sacred state in an instant. However, by using the soul map, Luo Qingtong could temporarily grant old Master Luo the power of the sacred state. This was the power of an inscription master. Chapter 748. Buzz. Luo Qingtong's fingers kept moving on old Master Luo's back. The energy required for the middle-level inscription technique was incomparable to that of the low-level inscription technique. Fortunately, Luo Qingtong's strength had reached the middle-level martial king realm. During this period of time, her strength had increased to a certain extent because she had studied the damaged sage-state celestial artifacts. From the middle-level martial king realm, she had reached the advanced martial king realm. At the same time, she had also filled the 1,000-year soul-luring wood with energy. After all, she had used the power of the heaven and earth tribulation thunder to kill a group of martial spirit realm cultivators. Under such circumstances, the heart of the 1,000-year soul-luring wood was naturally filled with energy. Buzz. Streams of energy were channeled into the inscription lines on Old Master Luo's back. As more and more inscription lines were drawn, the inscription pattern became more and more complete. Swoosh. As the last line in Luo Qingtong's hand landed and connected with the first inscription line, the inscription pattern on Old Master Luo's back was completely formed. Boom. Traces of the sage state's energy were generated and flowed into the soul borrowing diagram on Old Master Luo's back. With this trace of the sage state's energy, Old Master Luo could use it to activate the power of heaven and earth in the air. Luo Qingtong's strength was still weak. What she had drawn was the lowest level of the soul borrowing diagram, which was only equivalent to the strength of a beginner sage state expert. When her strength increased in the future, she would be able to draw more powerful soul borrowing diagrams. At that time, it could be a trump card in her hands. Moreover, there were more advanced inscription techniques above the soul borrowing diagram. All of this made Luo Qingtong very surprised and interested. Inscription techniques were rarer than anything she had ever come into contact with. She could not imagine how the powerful Immortal Slayer Palace had been destroyed, and how powerful was the person who had destroyed them. That old man Tianmingzi had really brought her a lot of trouble. Luo Qingtong's lips twitched slightly. Fortunately, as long as there was a sufficient price, she was not afraid of trouble. Boom. As Luo Qingtong completed her actions, Old Man Luo immediately immersed himself in the fusion of power brought about by the borrowing spirit diagram. He still needed to master that strand of Saint Realm power. That way, he wouldn't be flustered when he used it in the future. The method to use it was engraved in the soul borrow diagram. The moment Luo Qingtong finished drawing it, it was integrated into Grandfather Luo's mind. Boom. Boom. In Old Master Luo's mind, he practiced countless ways to use the power of the sacred state. As he closed his eyes and began to comprehend these methods, the day of the Empress Dowager's groom selection that Prince Ning had released in the Great Chu dynasty arrived. In order to not give Empress Dowager Yanxi too much time to prepare and make a comeback, when Ning Wang released the news, he set the time to half a month later. Now it was time. The 7th Prince of Yong immediately led Feng Wuan and a group of people from the Great Yong Sacred Dynasty into the Chu Imperial Palace. Empress Dowager Yanxi. Looking at the woman sitting under the eaves of the main hall under the Jade Pavilion, the 7th Prince of Yong's expression was proud. That pair of long and narrow eyes were indescribably teasing and complacent. I've said it before. Today you can only choose me. He raised his head and looked at Empress Dowager Yanxi with a superior expression. Chapter 749. It's not time yet. Why are you so anxious? Empress Dowager Yanxi clenched her fists under her sleeves. Her beautiful fingers were clenched into a ball. She didn't know what she was waiting for. Previously, he had received news that all the marriage teams had been stopped outside. What's more, with the current arrogance of Great Yong's 7th Prince, they must have arranged a lot of people outside the holy capital to prevent any marriage teams from entering the holy capital. This was a game between the two sacred dynasties. The Great Yong Sacred Dynasty was unprepared. Even if Empress Dowager Yanxi sent an army to help, it would be too late. Great Yong's 7th Prince didn't need to stop those people for long. As long as they could delay until today, Empress Dowager Yanxi would have no choice but to marry him, the only candidate. Otherwise they would be fooling the world. The Great Yong Sacred Dynasty could still send troops in the name of Empress Dowager Yanxi. Empress Dowager Yanxi couldn't advance or retreat. Whether she advanced or retreated, it was the Great Yong Sacred Dynasty's victory. The only way to resolve this crisis was to die and prove one's resolve with death. When Prince Ning released the news, He must have thought of this. He wanted to take revenge on Empress Dowager Yanxi and Great Chu. If Empress Dowager Yanxi didn't die, Great Chu would be robbed. That bastard. Empress Dowager Yanxi's eyes were cold to the extreme, and her heart was full of hatred. Humph. Since the Empress Dowager still wants to struggle, then this prince will wait with the Empress Dowager. Let's see who can stop this prince in the end. Great Yong's seventh prince sneered. He was confident in his niece's ability. Feng Wuan showed an extremely monstrous talent at the age of 12. In the Great Yong sacred dynasty, she as the first princess, had already ruled with the emperor. In the Great Yong sacred dynasty, all the political affairs and important decisions were made by her. That royal brother of his listened to everything she said. As for the members of the imperial family and the officials, they all respected her. With his niece's ability, the position of Great Yong's empress was no longer enough to attract her. The emperor of 4 dynasties, the #1 genius of True Spill continent, that was what she pursued. She wanted the world of Great Chu. With layers of arrangements, she would succeed. At this time, Great Yong's 7th prince still didn't know that his niece had failed once. He almost died in Prince Ning's mansion of Great Chu. If he knew, he wouldn't be so confident. Rumble. In the main city of the Black Field, Elder Luo's power had reached its peak. With a boom, the aura around his body exploded. In an instant, with the soul-borrowing diagram on his back as the center, a wave of extremely vast and boundless power of the world gathered from all directions in the sky. The power of the Saint Realm borrowed the power of heaven and earth. At this moment, Old Master Luo, a martial emperor, was able to borrow the power of the law of heaven and earth, just like a saint. Oh my God! In Luo Qingtong's arms, Little Pig raised his head and looked at the scene. False saint expert. Luo Qingtong, this perverted woman. She was only a martial king. He was actually able to create a false saint realm expert. It had never seen such an abnormal inscription master. That old man Tian Mingzi should be closing his eyes now that he's dead. At the final moment of his dissipation, he was able to find such an awesome and abnormal successor. Other people might not be able to find such a rare genius, even if they searched for their entire lives. Chapter 750. A person like her was born to be an overlord. A woman destined to stand at the pinnacle of this world. No wonder this woman was so arrogant and domineering when it first met her. A woman with such talent and ability would be a coward if she was timid and overcautious, okay? A true powerhouse would not lower his head even when he was at a disadvantage. Otherwise, what was the point of having such talent and ability? What was the point of becoming stronger? Lower your head once, lower your head again and again. A true powerhouse would face adversity head-on and fight for survival. They would not lower their heads when they were in trouble. The so-called rice light and the dim light was all bullshit. If one didn't have the heart to fight to the death in the face of the strong, if one didn't have the heart to rise from the brink of death, if one didn't have the unyielding heart to laugh proudly at the world and look down on all directions, if one didn't have the unyielding heart to even the heavens, how could one become an expert? Even if one became stronger, they would only be a slightly stronger coward. Wasn't the reason why Little Pig chose Luo Qingtong as its contracted master, because she was unrestrained and unrestrained in the face of adversity? A coward was not worthy to be its master, even if it was only a sealed pink pig. However, its true form was something that even the 4 seas and 8 wastelands feared. It's done. Luo Qingtong nodded in satisfaction as she looked at the energy flowing around Grandfather Luo. Borrowing the sliver of Saint State power from the spirit map would not harm Old Man Luo's cultivation base at all. With the spirit diagram, Grandfather Luo could temporarily possess the power of Sage Realm without forcefully increasing his strength or damaging his foundation. It was enough to deal with the Empress Dowager's groom selection. She wanted her grandfather to marry her grandmother in a grand manner to make up for their biggest regret. Luo Qingtong knew that the thing Grandfather Luo regretted the most in his life was being trapped in the mountains for trusting his brothers. When he finally broke out of the encirclement, he found out that his wife and son were being persecuted. He saved his son but lost his lover forever. Grandfather Luo had never stepped out of the eastern fence in his life. He even entrusted his hot-bloodedness and heroism to the army, and didn't even care about the Luo family. Wasn't it because she was engaged to the empire and her parents were no longer around? It was because of this that he no longer cared about his family, and didn't even care about his family. Otherwise, with old Master Luo's past glory, how could the Luo family be in such dire straits? Luo Qingtong was going to make up for this regret. Luo Qingtong had said before that she would give her grandfather the best. Haha! Grandpa Luo's joyful voice resounded in the sky. Even at this moment, he still felt like he was dreaming. His youth, his strength, all of it made her feel like she was in a dream. Old Master Luo was overjoyed. He was so happy that he was about to cry. He finally had the chance to make up for the regrets of the past, and get back the lover that he had failed to save. Qingtong, go. Let's go pick up your grandmother. He laughed heartily as he landed in front of Luo Qingtong. Wrong, I'm going to marry her. Luo Qingtong looked at him and smiled. Grandpa, are you ready? Let's go and marry Grandma again. Let her name be crowned with your surname. Let her live up to her name of being the Marquis of the Eastern Fence Country. Ah, yes. Let's go and marry her. Tears glistened in Grandfather Luo's eyes. Let's go. His long-cherished wish of many years was solved in one day. Chapter 751. Alright, let's go. As Luo Qingtong spoke, she raised her hand and released her spirit boat flying ship. During this period of time, Luo Qingtong didn't stay idle while Grandfather Luo was fusing with the Sage Realm energy. At this moment, the flying boat was decorated in red and green, and it looked like a marriage proposal. The flying boat was filled with the betrothal gifts that Luo Qingtong prepared for Grandfather Luo. This time, she swore to let her grandfather marry her grandmother in a grand manner. Grandfather, let's go. Luo Qingtong smiled at Grandfather Luo. All right. Grandfather Luo said as he laughed heartily. He flicked his sleeves and jumped onto the flying boat. Congratulations, Grandfather Luo. In the Blackfield City Lord Mansion, a group of experts was already waiting for orders. Dozens of flying boats rose into the air and guarded Luo Qingtong's flying boat. Cough cough. Qingtong, isn't this a little too grand? Old Master Luo's heart trembled as he looked at the spirit boats and flying boats around him. These were all spirit boats and flying ships. Even the imperial family of the empire might not be able to own a flying boat. Only the big forces and aristocratic families in the Holy Dynasty could own one. Grandfather Luo was very happy that his granddaughter made such a grand scene, and used the flying boats of the Black Field to make herself look good. He naturally liked the grand scene, but he was afraid that his granddaughter would owe the Blackfield too much, and it would be difficult for her to repay them. After all, even if they were business partners, they still had to settle accounts clearly. Although his granddaughter was the evil Dr. Ghost Eye and had a revered status in the Blackfield, she still had to pay a corresponding price for using the Blackfield's forces. Thinking of this, Grandfather Luo's heart was suddenly filled with indescribable worries. He quickly wanted his granddaughter to not be so busy. If Little Pig knew what he was thinking, he would definitely roll his eyes. What kind of price did Luo Qingtong have to pay to use the Blackfield's forces? That man could not wait to present the entire Blackfield to her. He was afraid that if she did not use it, she would not be able to live up to her title as the future mistress of the Blackfield. This old man was still worried about her. No, Grandpa, let's go. Luo Qingtong's expression was indifferent. If he didn't do that, he might not even be able to enter the city gates of the Great Chu Holy Capital. Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes as she thought of the news she had received. Buzz. With a thought, the entire spirit ship rose into the air and flew out of the main city of the Blackfield. Look. Many spirit boats and flying ships have appeared from the direction of the City Lord's mansion. Yes. It seems to be heading in the direction of the holy capital of the Great Chu. What's going on? Is the Blackfield going to war with the Great Chu Sacred Dynasty? Seeing this scene, everyone in the main city of the Blackfield was dumbfounded. But soon, someone saw the red and green decorations on Luo Qingtong's spirit ship and immediately shouted, "It's a marriage proposal fleet." Ah, I know, It's a marriage proposal fleet from the great Chu Empress Dowager Yanxi. Oh my god. Such a big move, so many fleet guards in the Black Field. Who is it? Everyone looked at Luo Qingtong's spirit ship and saw that there was no sign of the Black Field on it. Just who was it that could make the Black Domain main city dispatch so many spirit boats and airship guards? Generally, the big forces and aristocratic families in the sacred dynasty would not have such a posture, right? While everyone in the Black Field was surprised, in the Great Chu Imperial Palace. Chapter 752. Empress Dowager Yanxi, there's only 15 minutes left. Do you still want to continue struggling? Don't worry. No one will come. This king will be the only one left here, he said with a face full of confidence. Everything is unknown until the last moment. It's not time yet. Great Yong's 7th prince, it's too early for you to be happy. Empress Dowager Yanxi gritted her teeth. Although she was unwilling to admit defeat, under her sleeves, her fingertips and fingernails were all broken. Was there really no other way? Rumble. Outside the holy capital of the Great Chu sacred dynasty, Luo Qingtong's spirit ship had just entered the border of the holy capital, when it was immediately attacked. Rumble. One by one, well-trained experts rushed out from the border of the holy capital and rushed toward Luo Qingtong's spirit ship. Stop them. Don't let them enter the holy capital of the Great Chu sacred dynasty. Those people shouted fiercely. However, before they could finish their words, their leaping figures instantly froze in midair. Rumble. One by one, the figures of spirit ships rushed out from behind Luo Qingtong's spirit ship. The dense and sharp black pattern on it, and the many powerful auras that radiated from it caused the expressions of the group of experts, who had come to attack, to change drastically. Black Field. It's the people of the Black Field. These are the spirit ships of the Black Field. After Luo Qingtong's spirit ship, the black spirit ships appeared one after another. In an instant, the experts of the Great Yong sacred dynasty, who came to attack, turned ashen. Oh my god! There were so many spirit boats and flying ships. Did the entire Black Domain main city turn out in full force? Could it be that the city lord of the Black Field wants to marry Empress Dowager Yanxi? But even the city lord of the Black Field could not mobilize such a large force of the Black Field, right? Moreover, they looked at the figures that suddenly appeared and floated above the numerous spirit ships of the Black Field. In an instant, they felt as if they had fallen into an ice cave, trembling uncontrollably. Saint Realm Expert. There were so many Saint Realm experts. Oh my god! What was going on? The experts of the Great Yong dynasty, who had been clamoring to attack Luo Qingtong and the others and prevent them from entering the holy capital of the Empire of Qin, froze. In such a situation, who was besieging who? Who was attacking who? Their eyes were filled with shock as they stood in midair, looking at the huge fleet of spirit boats in front of them as they unfolded one after another. With an icy gaze, Luo Qingtong stood atop her spirit boat. Looking at the dumbfounded Great Yong experts in front of her, she suddenly raised her hand and waved. Kill them all. Leave no one alive. Intercept them and prevent them from entering the holy capital of Great Chu. Then, none of them would be spared. She wanted to see who could stop her from letting her grandfather marry her grandmother. Continue forward. Leaving a portion of the Blackfield spirit boats to be responsible for eliminating these ambushers, Luo Qingtong continued to steer the spirit boat forward. Numerous Black Domain spirit boats and flying ships were following them from all directions. Rumble. The fleet approached the glorious and majestic city of the holy capital of Great Chu. Not long after Luo Qingtong led the fleet out of the Black Field, a spirit boat suddenly appeared above the city lord's residence in the Black Field. Lord! Chapter 753. Yes. Where is she? Yi Qianxian's gaze swept across the entire city lord's mansion. Using his divine sense, he did not find Luo Qingtong's figure. Lord Evil Doctor has just led the old master to the Chu dynasty's holy capital. A Blackfield expert said respectfully, and then told him everything that had happened during this period of time. At the same time, in the Chu dynasty's imperial palace, Watching the last grain of sand fall, the seventh prince of Yong suddenly stood up, looked at Empress Dowager Yanxi in front of him, and laughed loudly. "It's time. Empress Dowager Yanxi, announce it. I am your husband." The only candidate for the Empress Dowager's groom selection this time. His face was full of complacency and ridicule. Empress Dowager Yanxi looked at the expression on his face, and the hand under her sleeve clenched a short dagger. "Luo Tong, in this life, we will never meet again." She suddenly clenched her 5 fingers. However, at this moment, rumble. Outside the outer wall of the imperial city, a loud rumble of spirit ships suddenly sounded. Soon after, an extremely loud and clear voice suddenly resounded from outside, like the sound of stormy waves and thunder drums. It was mixed in with the loud rumbling noises, and suddenly transmitted into the room. Eastern border country's Marquis Luo Tong has come to marry the Chu dynasty's Empress Dowager Yanxi. The moment the last word landed, the last grain of sand also completely fell to the bottom of the hourglass below. Rumble. In the Chu dynasty's holy capital, the red and green spirit ships led the way, and dozens of black spirit ships guarded on the left and right, rushing down from the outside in a line, leaping across the sky. "Look. It's the Blackfield spirit ships. My God. It's actually the Blackfield spirit ships. Who is this eastern border country's Marquis Luo Tong, to be able to invite people from the Blackfield to protect him?" Looking at this situation, I'm afraid the Blackfield spirit ships in the Blackfield's main city of the Chu dynasty have all come out. In the Chu dynasty's holy capital, everyone was shocked when they saw the fleet rushing in from the outside. Eastern border country. I don't seem to have heard of it. Which commandery of which holy dynasty? Or was it an extremely powerful empire that was about to be promoted to a commandery? When the other party reported his name, did he miss the word D? However, there were also people who slapped their heads. I've heard of this eastern border country. Last time, when a certain immortal sect relic appeared in the sacred dynasty of the Empire of Qin, it caused a great uproar. The eastern border country is nearby. Yeah. Now that you mention it, I remember it too. But in the vicinity of the immortal sect's ruins, everything is inferior countries. As soon as that person's voice rang out, the surroundings instantly fell silent. Are you kidding me? Low-tier country. After a long while, someone finally spoke up dryly. That's impossible, right? Yes. How is it possible for an inferior country to have such wealth? The group of people looked at the domineering fleet that was soaring across the sky and fell silent. Low-class country. A marquis had actually come to propose marriage to the Empress Dowager of the Great Chu sacred dynasty. Furthermore, they had even invited the people of the Black Field to escort them. Why did this sound so much like a fantasy story? But at this moment, this fantasy story had just happened in front of them. In the Chu dynasty's imperial palace, hearing the thunderous sound outside, the dagger in Yanxi's hand fell to the ground with a clang. Luo Tong. She looked surprised, happy, and worried. She looked in disbelief at the main gate of the Chu dynasty's imperial palace. How was this possible? Luo Tong? She must have heard wrongly. Chapter 754. Just as Empress Dowager Yanxi was thinking this, the ministers beside her cried out in surprise. Great, Empress Dowager! Someone has finally appeared. In this way, they would have room to turn the situation around. The faces of the ministers were filled with joy. The sudden burst of hope after despair made them look forward to the person who was about to appear. No matter who the other party was, to be able to appear at this time, they must have some ability. This time, they might really be able to survive the disaster. Yes. Empress Dowager Yanxi was stunned. Was she really not dreaming? Just as Empress Dowager Yanxi was stunned, Feng Wuan, who was sitting next to the 7th Prince of Yong, suddenly frowned and his eyes turned cold. The Marquis of the Eastern Border Kingdom? The Luo family of the Eastern Border Kingdom? Did she hear it wrong? Feng Wuan looked outside the palace coldly, almost thinking that he was hallucinating. For Feng Wuan, the Luo family of the Eastern Border Kingdom was like an unkillable bug that kept jumping around. It was fine that they were not destroyed by the imperial family of Tianyu before, but now they even jumped in front of him. A lowly family of a lowly country actually dared to propose marriage to Empress Dowager Yanxi of the Great Chu sacred dynasty? Who gave them the courage and confidence? No wonder his people did not stop them. No one would have thought that they would be so overconfident. However, just as Feng Wuan thought so, rumble. Outside the main gate of the Great Chu Imperial Palace in the distance, an extremely powerful fleet of spirit ships swept over. Rumble. Under the orders of the ministers of the Great Chu Imperial Palace, the defensive formation above the Great Chu Imperial Palace was completely opened, letting this huge fleet in. Under normal circumstances, this was absolutely impossible. But at this time, the people of the Great Chu were eager to slap the faces of the 7th Prince of Yong and the others, so they naturally went all out to build momentum for Luo Qingtong and the others. Rumble. The fleet stopped at the most central square of the Great Chu Imperial Palace. The row of pitch-black spirit ships and the obvious black region symbol on them caused everyone's faces to change in shock. Great Chu was naturally overjoyed. As for the 7th Prince of Yong, his face suddenly sank. Feng Wuan in particular looked at the fleet with a gloomy and cold gaze. What was going on? How could the Luo family of the Eastern Fence Line be able to invite people from the Black Field to protect them? These Blackfield spirit ships were emanating energy waves. Clearly, they had come from the main city. Almost all of them were Earth-grade spaceships. How could the people of the Luo clan of the Eastern Fence Line be qualified? He was actually able to mobilize the power of the Blackfield's main city? Evil Dr. Ghost Eye. She suddenly remembered that her subordinates had reported to her that evil Dr. Ghost Eye seemed to have some relationship with the Luo clan. Luo Qingtong's eyes, which were blinded by his poison, were cured by the evil Dr. Ghost Eye, and the person who had injured him from a distance should also be the evil Dr. Ghost Eye. However, did Ming Zun of the Blackfield really dote on her so much? For a mere Luo clan, a Luo clan that only had some relationship with her, he actually did not hesitate to mobilize the power of the Blackfield's main city? As Feng Wuan thought about it, the nails on his hands clenched tightly into his palms. Her heart was filled with unspeakable jealousy and hatred. That pair of eyes instantly stared at the red and green spirit ship. And when she looked over, everyone's gazes also landed on that spirit ship. They all wanted to see who exactly had arrived at this time. And just as everyone's attention was on them, with a click, the door on that spirit ship opened. Chapter 755. Dong. That person's figure landed on the square in the palace. He was dressed in a dark blue robe, outlining his iron-blooded and domineering aura. Old Master Luo's face was filled with excitement as he looked at the beautiful woman who was sitting under the canopy of the luxurious building in front of him. "Sheer, I'm here to marry you," he said resolutely. That pair of affectionate eyes looked at Empress Dowager Yanxi. After decades, he finally had the opportunity to stand in front of the woman he loved most and say such words. Old Master Luo originally thought that he would miss Yanxi in this lifetime. Just like that time when he killed his way out of the beast tied deep in the mountains, he only had time to see a corner of her clothes slide down the cliff in front of his eyes. In this life, he did not owe his family, nor did he owe anyone. He only owed her one sentence. He did not let her down in this life. "I'm here to pick you up." Impudent. Old Master Luo's voice came out, and in an instant, Great Yong's 7th prince shouted angrily. His plan was ruined, and the person who came seemed to have an old relationship with Empress Dowager Yanxi. Great Yong's 7th prince, who had long regarded Empress Dowager Yanxi as his exclusive property, instantly had a déjà vu of being cuckolded. Looking at Old Master Luo standing on the square of the main hall, his face was angry. "You're just a marquis from an inferior country. Who gave you the guts to say such things to the Empress Dowager of the Sacred Dynasty? What qualifications do you have to come and propose? Do you have the ability to compete with this prince? A mere marquis of an inferior country?" Great Yong's 7th prince's words immediately caused the expressions of many Great Chu officials present to change. They did not care if Old Master Luo had an old relationship with Empress Dowager Yanxi, as long as he could stop Great Yong's conspiracy. What's more, it would be better if he really had an old relationship with Empress Dowager Yanxi. After all, it was naturally better to choose a person who had an affair with the Empress Dowager than to choose the seventh prince who was eyeing Great Chu covetously. But a marquis of an inferior country. Could he stop Great Yong's conspiracy? This was what the officials of Great Chu were worried about. They had put all their hopes on old Master Luo. Now that they heard Great Yong's seventh prince's words, they were shocked and instantly turned cold. A marquis from an inferior country. The other party's strength might not even be as strong as a bodyguard of the seventh prince of Yong. How could they stop the seventh prince of Great Yong's conspiracy? After all, since they were asking for the Empress Dowager's hand in marriage, they naturally had to compete. Regardless of family background or financial resources, Grandfather Luo was clearly no match for Great Yong's seventh prince. All of Empress Dowager Yanxi's attention was on old Master Luo. She looked at the valiant figure standing on the square. She almost used up all the strength in her body to restrain herself from immediately getting up and flying over. At this moment, hearing Great Yong's seventh prince's words, her complexion changed as she looked worriedly at Grandfather Luo. At this moment, a faint and leisurely voice suddenly sounded from the red and green spirit ship. Then what does Great Yong's seventh prince feel is qualified to compete with you? As this voice rang out, a figure slowly appeared at the entrance of the spirit ship. Luo Qingtong looked indifferent. With her hands behind her back, she waved her sleeves and slowly walked down from the spirit ship. Chapter 756. Everyone looked at the figure walking down from the airship. In an instant, everyone fell silent. The young girl's face was like a hibiscus. Her skin was smooth and creamy, and her pair of elegant eyebrows were like the flowers of the distant mountains. Under a light touch, it was a breathtaking charm. Her nose was slightly pointed, her eyebrows were creamy, and her cheeks were rosy. The hint of a smile on his lips revealed a devilish aura, absolutely charming and domineering. That graceful and leisurely posture, that peerless beauty. Everyone's gaze involuntarily looked at Luo Qingtong, and then at Feng Wan. They were not inferior in the slightest. In fact, Luo Qingtong's posture and appearance were slightly better than Feng Wan's. If they didn't know that Feng Wan was the princess of the Great Yong dynasty, they would have mistakenly thought that Luo Qingtong was the peerless and graceful princess that could only be raised under the majestic Great Yong dynasty. After all, her appearance and bearing were not inferior in the slightest. Low-level small country? Everyone couldn't help but recall the words of the Great Yong's seventh prince just now, and they were suddenly filled with doubts. Was this pair of grandfather and granddaughter really from a marquis household in a low-level small country? Could a lowly family from such a lowly country really raise such a graceful, noble, and gorgeous young lady? Everyone's gaze was fixed on Luo Qingtong, and from time to time, they would look at Feng Wan. Looking at these gazes, the latter was indescribably angry. However, Feng Wan didn't expect Luo Qingtong to be so outstanding. Looking at the young girl walking down from the airship, she couldn't help but admit that Luo Qingtong's aura was not something that the legitimate daughter of a marquis household in a low-level small country could possess. She would believe it even if the other party was the princess of the Great Yong dynasty. The Luo family's Qingtong was actually such a beautiful young girl. Then why did the royal family of Tianyu dislike her so much? Feng Wan had never seen Luo Qingtong before, and had only heard of her existence from others. He knew that she was Yuanma's fiancée, but neither he nor Tianyu's royal family liked her. She had thought that the other party was merely the first daughter of an ordinary marquis, and the kind that was especially unpresentable. She couldn't even compare to the young ladies of the empire's great clans. But who would have thought that the other party was actually so magnificent? Even if no one said it, their eyes clearly told Feng Wan that she had been suppressed. He had been suppressed by a young girl from a low-level family, that came from a low-level family from a low-level country. Feng Wan's eyes were cold. She looked at Luo Qingtong, who was standing in front of Grandfather Luo, and said coldly, "Luo Qingtong? Miss Luo. This doesn't seem to be a place where you can interrupt, right?" When she said this, she coldly raised her head and looked at Luo Qingtong with an aloof gaze. Your grandfather, as Empress Dowager Yenshi's pursuer, has the qualifications to talk to us. But who are you to stand here and talk to us? This highness is the first princess of the Great Yong dynasty, and my uncle is the 7th prince of Great Yong. What kind of identity and confidence do you have to dare to stand in front of us and talk to us? Before you ask, kneel down and greet us. Saying this, she coldly flicked her sleeves and looked at Luo Qingtang. So what if she was extraordinarily beautiful and had an extraordinary temperament? Since he had overpowered her, she would overpower him again. With the other party's identity, what could she use to compare with her? Evil Dr. Ghost, I was able to invite people from the Black Domain to support her. Could it be that he could give her a more prominent identity than his? Chapter 757. F***CK. In Luo Qingtang's sleeves, Little Pig was about to jump through them. What did this woman say? She wants you to kneel before her? Damn it. Luo Qingtang had never even knelt before Yi Qianxian, okay? Now this princess of Great Yong wanted her to kneel? How shameless was she? Those from Blackfield who came with Luo Qingtang and didn't show up in the spiritual boat also had a slight change in expression. Luo Qingtang was their future mistress. How could she kneel before others? Not to mention that Feng Wuan was only the princess of Great Yong. Even if the emperor of Great Yong came in person, he didn't have the qualifications. The other party was really too arrogant. Immediately, those from Blackfield had a burst of cold anger on their faces. They suddenly jumped and were about to fly out. However, at this moment, the voice of Empress Dowager Yanxi, who had been silent all this time, suddenly sounded. Who said she doesn't have the qualifications to talk to you? Empress Dowager Yanxi's figure suddenly stood up from the luxurious carriage. The arrival of Luo Qingtang and grandfather Luo gave her the greatest strength to persevere. At this moment, the Empress Dowager, who rose from the throne with insignificant qualifications and protected the bloodline of the late Emperor of Great Chu, was full of vigor. Pass on this Empress's decree. Qingtang of the Marquis residence of the Eastern Li nation, Fang Shumin, intelligent and thoughtful. She has won my heart. I am happy at first sight. From now on, she will be conferred as the Princess of Great Chu, and will enjoy the honor of being the princess of the first wife. Empress Dowager Yanxi didn't seize a personal matter for herself, because of the position of Empress Dowager of Great Chu. But today, she was going to be selfish for once. If she watched her granddaughter being forced to kneel in front of her, she didn't deserve to be a grandmother. She didn't deserve to be the Empress Dowager of Great Chu. She would like to see who dared to humiliate her granddaughter in front of her. Empress Dowager Yanxi. Hearing Empress Dowager Yanxi publicly supporting Luo Qingtang, it was clear that she was deliberately opposing the Great Yong sacred dynasty. Great Yong's 7th prince's face was filled with anger. From his point of view, Empress Dowager Yanxi's temporary bestowal of Luo Qingtang as the princess of Great Chu was clearly an excuse to slap Great Yong's face. But he didn't expect that Empress Dowager Yanxi just wanted to protect her granddaughter from being bullied. Feng Wuan also believed that Empress Dowager Yanxi was deliberately slapping Great Yong's face. But to help Luo Qingtang? She looked at Empress Dowager Yanxi, who stood up with a stern expression, and smiled faintly. Empress Dowager Yanxi, have you forgotten something? Feng Wuan slowly stood up from his seat. The embroidered gown slid down the table in front of her. This Imperial Highness is not only Great Yong's first Imperial Princess, but also an Imperial Princess with the title of Holy. With the addition of Great Yong's Imperial fate, my status is honorable and noble, surpassing all the Imperial descendants of the 4 great sacred dynasties. Even if Luo Qingtang is the Princess of Great Chu, she still has to kneel and salute me when she sees this Imperial Highness. In front of this Imperial Highness, she has no right to not kneel. Feng Wuan's voice was cold. Even if Empress Dowager Yanxi obstructed her today, she still wanted Luo Qingtang to kneel and kowtow to her. He wanted her to humiliate her elegance in front of him. No one could suppress her in front of her. This Luo Qingtang was no exception. Princess Feng Wuan. Empress Dowager Yanxi was furious. Bestowing the title of Holy was only possible after praying to heaven and opening a temple. Even if she immediately bestowed the title of Holy on Luo Qingtong now, it would have no effect. Luo Qingtong's eyes narrowed at this moment. She looked at Feng Wuan and was about to speak. Chapter 758. What if I say that she is qualified? As this voice rang out, in an instant, a figure appeared in front of the crowd. Yi Qianming was dressed in silver and had black hair. His incomparably handsome face was hidden under a dark golden mask. That pair of extremely cold eyes stared coldly at Feng Yuan in front of him. The ice-cold light that shot out from those eyes caused Feng Yuan's entire body to feel a chill. Blackfield Mingzun. When they saw Yi Qianming's figure appear, everyone present was shocked. This Blackfield Mingzun almost never appeared in front of others. Those who could see him were all the top experts of the 4 sacred dynasties. Ordinary Saint Realm experts were not qualified to meet him, let alone other people. Many people in the Great Chu Imperial Palace had heard of his name, but they had never seen Mingzun in person. This included the 7th Prince of Great Yong. At this moment, everyone looked at Yi Qianming, who suddenly appeared with shock in their eyes. And the one who was even more shocked was Feng Wuan. This first princess of the Great Yong sacred dynasty was completely humiliated by Yi Qianming's words. She was in a very sorry state. That's right. She was the first princess of Great Yong, and the one who was conferred the title of sage. Her status was comparable to half of a sage emperor. But so what? No matter how noble and respected her status was, could it be compared to Yi Qianming? Blackfield Mingzun, the first master of the true Spill continent. Except for a few old monsters, no one could be compared to Yi Qianming. A man's words were like gold and jade. If he said that Luo Qingtong had the qualifications not to kneel, then Luo Qingtong had the qualifications. She didn't need any title. She didn't need any title. Just based on that one sentence of his, it was enough. All of Feng Wuan's pride and reliance were completely shattered by Yi Qianming at this moment. If Mingzun says there is, then there is. Feng Yuan clenched her silver teeth tightly. Her lips, which were pampered and maintained extremely well, were about to bleed from being bitten. Why? Feng Yuan was so jealous that he almost went crazy. She didn't dare to raise her head to look at Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianming, afraid that the latter would see the hatred and murderous intent in her eyes. Why was Luo Qingtong protected by Yi Qianming? In the Blackfield, Mingzun had never appeared in front of others. No matter how much she begged, it was difficult for her to meet him. But at this moment, she easily saw him. Because of Luo Qingtong and evil Dr. Ghost Eye. Thinking of these two people, Feng Wuan clenched his teeth. These two people had humiliated her to the extreme. Not only did evil Dr. Guitong steal Mingzun's favor, he even ruined her reputation as a heavenly doctor. She had ruined one of her good moves. And now, because of the Luo family's matter, the other party invited Mingzun to support Luo Qingtong. To Feng Wuan, she didn't put Luo Qingtong in her eyes at all. Even though she had been rejected by Yuanma in a roundabout way because of her, she had only casually sent a subordinate, who was even a martial royal realm expert. To her, he wasn't even comparable to the handyman by her side. And she had sent such a person because she had heard that Luo Qingtong had a pair of strange eyes. But now, the other party had ruined her good plans. Not only that, but she had also received the protection of Mingzun in the Blackfield. That was something that she couldn't even ask for. Chapter 759. Luo Qingtong looked at Yi Qianming, who suddenly appeared in surprise. She didn't know when this man came back. Luo Qingtong felt a burst of joy in her heart. She didn't notice that when she saw Yi Qianming appear, her eyes lit up. Yi Qianming noticed it. When he saw Luo Qingtong's gaze on him, his mood immediately brightened. This woman also missed him, and was looking forward to his return. Thinking of this, he didn't feel so depressed when he heard that she had agreed to a bet with others, and said that she would leave him if she lost. He walked towards Luo Qingtong. At this moment, Feng Wuan's voice suddenly sounded again. But Mingzun, if you protect Great Chu like this, aren't you breaking the agreement between the Blackfield and the 4 great sacred dynasties? There was an agreement between the Blackfield and the four great sacred dynasties. The four great sacred dynasties couldn't interfere with the matters of the Black Field, and the Black Field couldn't interfere with the matters of the four great sacred dynasties. After all, Mingzun of the Black Field was too powerful. No matter which side he sided with, it wasn't a good thing for others. At this moment, Yi Qianming spoke out to protect Luo Qingtang, but Feng Yuan misinterpreted it as helping the Great Chu dynasty. After all, Empress Dowager Yanxi had just conferred Luo Qingtang as the Princess of Great Chu. Naturally, if Yi Qianming helped Luo Qingtang, it was also helping Great Chu. Originally, this kneel, and not kneel, was just a tit-for-tat between Feng Yuan and Luo Qingtang. Now with Feng Yuan's words, it was directly raised to a fight between the sacred dynasties. Yi Qianming helping Luo Qingtang was breaking the rules. Hearing this, Yi Qianming's footsteps suddenly stopped. Behind him, Beiqing and Feng Yu both frowned and looked at Feng Yuan. What was the matter with this Princess Feng Yuan? Her master had already spoken, yet she was still so unforgiving. These words were clearly trying to use the agreement between the Black Field and the four great sacred dynasties to force Mistress to give in, so that she could continue to use her status to suppress the evil doctor. But she didn't know that the evil doctor was her master's only bottom line and reverse scale. Yi Qianming stared coldly at Feng Yuan. You want to follow the rules? His voice was cold. Good. In that case, I'll give the Great Yong sacred dynasty a rule. As he spoke, he flicked his sleeve. In an instant, with a boom, an incomparably vast aura of power that far exceeded the Saint Realm exploded from the depths of the Great Chu Imperial Palace. Feng Yuan's arrogant expression, which had been waiting for Yi Qianming to give in, instantly changed when he sensed this aura. Her heart suddenly trembled. Transcendent Saint. It was another level above the Saint Realm. They were the true powerhouses who stood at the peak of the four great sacred dynasties. There were only a few such powerhouses in the four sacred dynasties, and there was one in each of the four great sacred dynasties. It was extremely difficult to alarm such powerhouses. They basically didn't care about the outside world anymore, and they wouldn't care about ordinary things at all. It was the same for the transcendent saints of the four great sacred dynasties. Unless it was a matter of life and death, they basically wouldn't appear. Otherwise, how could Feng Yuan and the others dare to openly plot to seize the throne of the Great Chu Empire? It was because the transcendent saint was in seclusion, and the Empress Dowager was in charge of the Great Chu Empire. They used the matter of becoming the Empress Dowager's husband to seize the throne of the Great Chu Empire. Once they successfully controlled the Great Chu Empire, even if the other party's powerhouses beyond the Saint Realm appeared, they wouldn't be able to do anything. After all, Great Yong also had transcendent saints. Chapter 760. Feeling the vast and majestic aura, Feng Yuan's complexion changed from green to white. She wanted to force Yi Qianming to give in so that he couldn't help Luo Qingtang and the others. But she didn't expect that he would directly call out the transcendent saint of Great Chu. In such a situation, she and the others, before she finished thinking, the seventh prince of Great Yong on the other side had already turned pale and leaned towards her in a panic. Yuan, you're in big trouble. Although he had always been a little afraid of this niece, the seventh prince of Great Yong couldn't help but reprimand her. Why did she have to go against that Luo Qingtang? Why did she have to make others kneel? Even when Mingzun of the Black Field spoke, she still didn't forgive. This was great. If the transcendent saint of Great Chu came out and knew what they were going to do to Great Chu. Why are you panicking? Feng Yuan also panicked for a moment, but she soon calmed down. We're here to participate in the Empress Dowager's groom selection. Who can do anything to us? This time, the Empress Dowager's groom selection wasn't done by them. The people of Great Chu couldn't blame them, as long as they insisted that they had no other intentions. So what if the other party knew that their motives weren't pure? The only pity was that they couldn't use this to force Mingzun to give in. That Luo Qingtang escaped. Thinking of this, Feng Yuan suddenly gritted her teeth. Mingzun was so protective of the other party to this extent. That evil Dr. Ghost had such a great influence on him. All of this should have been hers. If she had shown her medical skills earlier and gained Mingzun's appreciation, She would be the one who was protected and spoiled. Thinking of this, Feng Yuan felt a burst of hatred. When the aura exploded, Luo Qingtong was also a little stunned. There was actually such a strong person hidden in the imperial palace of Great Chu? Then how could he be forced to this extent by the people of Great Yong? Do you think it's so easy to alarm such an expert? Little Pig saw through her thoughts and rolled his eyes. Moreover, this is the Empress Dowager's search for a groom, not a large-scale attack by Great Yong. If it wasn't for Yi Qianming, this expert wouldn't have been alarmed. This kind of powerhouse is the one who stabilizes the fate of the nation. I won't make a move for no reason. Luo Qingtong nodded her head in understanding. I see. As she spoke, her expression suddenly changed. It was a good thing that Yi Qianming called out this person. Otherwise, when her grandfather and grandmother got married, this expert would suddenly appear. Great Yong's 7th prince had Great Yong's backing. Naturally, he wasn't afraid. But if she wasn't by Grandpa's side, wouldn't that be bad? Thinking of this, Luo Qingtong rejoiced. Then she thought, did Yi Qianming come here just for this? Otherwise, with this man's temperament, he would definitely be impatient to get involved in these matters. Even if he came back, he would definitely wait for her in the black field. Thinking of this, Luo Qingtong couldn't help but look at Yi Qianming. The man's expression was indifferent. After alarming the transcendent saint of Great Chu, his gaze fell on Luo Qingtong. Or it could be said that since he appeared, his gaze had always been on Luo Qingtong. At this moment, when he saw the girl looking at him, the light in her eyes flashed, and he immediately understood. Humph, he snorted softly. This woman was smart and cunning and didn't misunderstand him. Otherwise, he would definitely settle this account with her when he returned. Previously, she used him as a bet. Even if he wasn't angry, he wouldn't let her off so easily. Chapter 761. The aura from the depths of the Great Chu Imperial Palace flew up quickly, and in an instant, appeared above the square. What's going on? Who alarmed me? The transcendent saint from the Great Chu Imperial Palace floated above the square, and his sharp eagle eyes instantly scanned the entire place. Anyone who was swept by his eyes felt as if they had been pierced by a needle. Those with slightly lower cultivation felt that the gaze was like a sharp blade, piercing their hearts and making them feel suffocated. It was as if they were about to die under this gaze. In fact, it was indeed so. The transcendent saint's sharp gaze could kill, and his aura was like a rainbow. This kind of expert had already reached the point where he could mobilize the power of heaven and earth with just a thought, and instantly kill weaker cultivators. What they cultivated was already on another level of power. Great Ancestor. When they saw the transcendent saint appear, everyone from the Great Chu Imperial Palace knelt down and greeted him. The transcendent saint did not pay attention to them, because he had already seen Yi Qianxian. Mingzun. Seeing the silver-clothed black-haired man standing there, the transcendent saint's expression was slightly surprised, and then it quickly turned to vigilance and doubt. You woke me up? I remember that we have an agreement with you. We acknowledge the existence of the Black Field, and you are not to attack the 4 sacred dynasties. Why have you appeared in the Great Chu Imperial Palace? Thinking that Yi Qianxian had come to cause trouble, the transcendent saint's aura instantly changed, and he looked at Yi Qianxian with a wary gaze. I have no interest in your Great Chu Imperial Palace. Yi Qianxian's voice was cold. I just don't want to break the rules. Your Great Chu Imperial Palace's matters, settle it yourselves. As he spoke, he flicked his sleeves and looked at Feng Yu beside him. The latter understood and stood up with a smile to explain. Great Ancestor, don't misunderstand. Your Empress Dowager is looking for a husband, and we people from the Black Field have also come to participate. We were afraid that people would say that we broke the agreement, so we woke you up. As he spoke, he glanced at the slightly pale Feng Yuan and sneered in his heart. She actually wanted to force her master to give in. This Princess Feng Yuan really thought too highly of herself. Did she think that she was the evil doctor? In this world, other than Lord Evil Doctor, he had never seen anyone else who could make his master suffer. Groom selection? What marriage? Hearing Feng Yu's words, That transcendent saint instantly frowned. He looked at the people of Great Chu. Finally, the officials of Great Chu found a chance to speak. Immediately, they knelt down and cried, telling all the things that Prince Ning had done. Had it not been for Yi Qianxian deliberately alerting a transcendent saint, these courtiers would never have been able to see him in their entire lives. Not to mention complaining to the other party about Ning Wang's actions. In fact, King Ning's actions were enough to sentence him to death. But because he was a direct descendant of the Great Chu imperial palace and was a prince, the courtiers could not do anything to him without solid evidence to prove that he was harmful to Great Chu. At most, they could only imprison him. This was also the reason why King Ning was so unscrupulous. Firstly, he did not rebel, and secondly, he did not plot to rebel. He only created an opportunity for others to have the opportunity to overturn the Great Chu Empire. With the previous emperor's edict as a guarantee, what was he afraid of? Who could do anything to him? Chapter 762. Bastard. Nonsense. How dare you tarnish the sacred name of our Chu royal family? The Empress Dowager's groom selection? Wasn't that putting their Chu empire on the chopping board, waiting for others to take it? What's more, how could their Chu empire have such a scandal as the Empress Dowager's groom selection? The person who came up with this idea not only had sinister intentions, but also made their Chu royal family the laughingstock of the world. The transcendent saint's face was furious, and he directly raised his hand. In an instant, the wind and clouds surged above the entire Chu imperial palace. Countless forces of heaven and earth gathered, converging into an incomparably huge palm in an instant, and swept towards the Prince Ning's residence in the holy capital of Chu. In the Prince Ning's residence, Prince Ning was lying on the bed in his room, recuperating. Hearing the endless reports from his subordinates, he learned that the seventh prince of Yong and others had entered the Chu imperial palace to force him to abdicate. He was very proud in his heart, and he smiled coldly. Empress Dowager Yin, she also had such a day. That bitch made him the laughingstock of the entire Chu and even the world. Then he would let her have a taste of this. The feeling of being forced didn't feel good, right? She wanted to help his imperial brother protect this empire, but he wouldn't let her. She wanted to protect this empire, fine. She could just die. Without her, the Empress Dowager Yin Shi, wouldn't Great Yong's conspiracy not succeed? Thinking of this, Prince Ning smiled sinisterly. At this moment, rumble. Above the sky, there was a sudden sound of thunder. Prince Ning was proud in his heart, but when he heard this, he frowned. He just saw that the weather outside was fine. Why did thunder suddenly appear? Just as he was about to ask the guards outside what was going on, he heard a burst of panicked voices outside. Hand! Hand! Heaven's might! Quick! Run! Those voices were panicked and frightened. Before Prince Ning could react, there was a boom, and the main courtyard pavilion he was in was instantly overturned. Rumble! The sound of explosions rang out. Prince Ning was still lying on the bed, and when he looked up, he saw a huge palm carrying a majestic force, grabbing towards him. Ah! Who? How dare you attack me in the holy capital of Chu? Ah! Don't you know that I am the Prince of Chu? A direct descendant of the Chu royal family. You! Prince Ning screamed and yelled at the same time. He was grabbed by the giant hand, and was instantly dragged to the top of the Chu imperial palace's sacrificial ceremony square. All the bones in his body were almost crushed into powder. Just as he was about to curse at the person who had captured him, his voice suddenly stopped. On the square, a group of people looked at him indifferently, coldly, or gloatingly. As for the figure sitting in the middle, whose entire body was brimming with powerful and terrifying power, his face instantly turned pale. Grand Uncle. How could this be? How could this be? Granduncle Huang was supposed to be in seclusion, so why would he appear here? This was a transcendent saint. At the thought of what he had done, Prince Ning's face turned pale. The teeth in his mouth were also chattering. Imperial Granduncle. He desperately wanted to explain, but that transcendent saint didn't care about him at all. Humph. I don't have a royal descendant like you. You actually dared to tarnish the reputation of my Chu imperial family and invite a wolf into the house. Your death is not enough to be regretted. Chapter 763. Rumble. In the sky, the huge hand that was grabbing Lord Ning suddenly clenched as the Transcendent Saint moved. Prince Ning's scream was incomparably mournful. His flesh, blood, and bones were all crushed into pieces by that pinch. Blood drifted down from the sky. The Transcendent Saint's expression was cold as he clenched his fist. Blood refinement. Along with his voice, Prince Ning's shattered flesh and blood were all wrapped up by the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. In the next second, streaks of blood-colored aura were extracted from Prince Ning's flesh and blood, converging into a drop of crimson blood. At the same time, blood-curdling screams came from Prince Ning's residence. Then, countless tiny bloodline auras flew out and merged into the drop of blood in the Great Chu Palace. Feeling the powerful and vast aura in the drop of blood, Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows and asked Little Pig in her mind, "What's that? Prince Ning's blood? But that's not right. The power contained in this drop of blood is extremely powerful. Even Prince Ning's strength isn't that strong. How did he refine such a powerful drop of blood? It's the imperial bloodline in his body. This transcendent saint from the Great Chu imperial family is refining the power of the imperial bloodline in his body," Little Pig explained to Luo Qingtong. Those who have surpassed the saint realm can pass on their power through their bloodline. The 4 sacred dynasties were able to stand tall in the eastern region and rule over countless powerful countries because of their bloodline. They have many experts among them, as many as the clouds. If it weren't for the fact that Great Yong was the one who forced Great Chu, ordinary people wouldn't have any ideas about them. However, there is a limit to the power of the bloodline. As time passes, if there are no more experts who have surpassed the saint realm, the bloodline will gradually disappear, Little Pig explained to Luo Qingtong. Oh. Luo Qingtong nodded. So that's how it is. She suddenly thought of Yi Qianxian's heavenly veins physique. That man's strength is definitely beyond the saint realm. No wonder those people on his side would stuff him with beauties every day. It didn't matter how many of them died. It was no wonder that such a powerful man would act like he had never touched a woman before. Luo Qingtong couldn't help but laugh when she thought of the first time Yi Qianxian saw her, and the angry look on his face when she deliberately tried to get close to him. Boom. After the bloodline was refined, the transcendent saint waved his hand and summoned the drop of blood into his hand. Then he said coldly, "Don't worry, it's too late. King Ning's lineage is hereby stripped of their status as a direct descendant of the Great Chu imperial family and reduced to commoners. From now on, you can no longer consider yourself as a disciple of the imperial family of the Darchu dynasty." This transcendent sage's words directly pushed everyone from King Ning's mansion to the bottom of the valley. After doing all this, his gaze immediately shifted to Great Yong's 7th prince and grandfather Luo. "Emph." He snorted with a cold expression, and was about to order the Empress Dowager's groom's selection to be annulled. At this moment, Feng Wuan's voice sounded. "Ancestor of Great Chu, since King Ning has been executed and the Great Chu imperial family has been cleaned up, shouldn't we continue with the Empress Dowager's groom selection?" Chapter 764. Feng Wuan's complexion was pale. However, she still gritted her teeth and endured the pressure of the transcendent saint to say these words. Feng Wuan was not reconciled. She was just one step away. This transcendent saint could not guard the Chu imperial family forever. As long as imperial uncle could become the Empress Dowager's husband, she would have a way to control the Chu imperial family. Ning Wang was dead. In the future, the Chu imperial family would be Empress Dowager Yanxi's world. There would almost be no more opportunities like this in the future. She could not let go of this opportunity. Looking at her, Luo Qingtong's eyes flashed. She also wanted to stop that transcendent saint's decision, but since Feng Wuan had made a move, then she would just watch the show. After all, this kind of action that drew hatred was not easy to do. Luo Qingtong looked at Feng Wan's pale face, and her tottering figure under the transcendent saint's pressure. When this matter was successful, she would thank her on behalf of grandfather and grandmother. Impossible. That transcendent saint looked at Feng Wan coldly. In the history of the imperial family, there has never been a precedent of the Empress Dowager remarrying. It is even more impossible for the Empress Dowager to choose a husband. This matter was all caused by Ning Wang, that scum of the Chu imperial family. My Chu imperial family does not recognize this Empress Dowager's marriage. As he spoke, he directly pressed down on Feng Wan. Yuan. Great Yong's seventh prince and others were frightened by this pressure, and hurriedly came to pull Feng Wan, but she waved them away. Feng Wan had a stomach full of anger, and the ambition that had died before it even started. How could she let it go? If she left now, then Luo Qingtong and evil Dr. Ghost I would benefit. Feng Wan's cold gaze swept across Luo Tong. The other party clearly had an affair with Empress Dowager Yan Shi. If she left, with Ming Zun's strength, who knew if the Chu imperial family would agree to them being together in the end? Feng Wan would never allow such a thing to happen. She would never let Luo Qingtong and evil Dr. Ghost I get what they wanted. Chu imperial ancestor. Feng Wan said coldly. The Empress Dowager's marriage was announced by your Chu imperial family. I don't care about the reason, since your Chu imperial family has released such news. Imperial family's imperial family. Now, you're saying that the Empress Dowager's groom selection is invalid. Are you deliberately fooling the world? Imperial family. The dignified imperial family of the Chu dynasty is so untrustworthy, casually deceiving everyone. Imperial family. Imperial family. Imperial Emperor S. If this transcendent saint from Great Chu insisted on canceling the Empress Dowager's groom selection, Great Yong would have an excuse to send troops to Great Chu. This little girl, what a sinister mind. He was actually so determined to obtain Great Chu. The transcendent saint from Great Chu was so angry that his eyes were burning. He wished he could slap Feng Wan to death with his sleeves. But he couldn't. The other party was Great Yong's holy conferred princess. Unless he wanted to start a war with Great Yong, he absolutely could not touch her. And with Great Chu's current situation, it was obviously not suitable for them to clash with Great Yong, the second strongest of the four great sacred dynasties in China. Chapter 765. Isn't Great Yong being too overbearing? Her expression was indifferent as she stepped on Feng Wan's words with a smile. Great Chu's ancestor might not want to cancel the Empress Dowager's groom search. Perhaps he just looks down on Great Yong's people. That's why he said such words. Don't tell me that Great Yong's people will also fly into a rage out of humiliation? Only you are allowed to come for the groom search, and others are not allowed to look down on you. There's no such thing as coercion in business, let alone a groom search. That's right. Hearing Luo Qingtong's words, the transcendent saint from Great Chu seemed to have found a way out and followed her words. I indeed look down on Great Yong's people. That's why I deliberately said that. As he spoke, his gaze swept coldly across Great Yong's seventh prince. In reality, to this transcendent saint from Great Chu, no matter who came from Great Yong, he would not let that person become the Empress Dowager's husband. Otherwise, wouldn't he be inviting a wolf into the house? Just as Feng Wan thought, he could not always guard Great Chu's imperial family. If that was the case, he would not have to wait for Great Yong to steal the country. If his cultivation regressed, would he still need to wait for Great Yong to steal the country? They would be able to fight their way in openly. Therefore, even if this Empress Dowager's groom search was to end, he could not let Great Yong's people succeed. Thinking of this, the transcendent saint from Great Chu's gaze immediately landed on Yi Qianxian. Ming Zun, didn't you say that your people from Blackfield also came to participate in the groom search? If it was someone from Blackfield, he could be at ease. This transcendent saint from Great Chu was originally unwilling to continue holding the Empress Dowager's groom search. It was too shameful for the imperial family. However, Feng Yuan was aggressive and was obviously determined to win. Under such circumstances, he naturally could not give Great Yang's people an excuse or opportunity. However, if he wanted to continue, he had to find someone he could be at ease with. In this world, who could contend against Great Yang and make him feel completely at ease that Great Chu's throne would not be stolen? Naturally, it was the Black Field. With Ming Zun's strength, even if he coveted the throne of Great Chu, he didn't need to resort to such underhanded means. Not to mention, with the other party's temperament, he didn't even care about treasures that appeared in the world. So why would he scheme to seize the throne of Great Chu? With that thought in mind, the transcendent saint from the Great Chu glanced at Bei Qing and Feng Yu. There were only the two of them standing by Yi Qianxian's side. The other experts of the Black Field were all in the spirit ship. Ahem, exalted ancestor, it's not us. It's this. Luo Tong. Feng Yu and Bei Qing quickly clarified and pointed at Old Master Luo. Of course, he couldn't call him Old Master now. Both of them directly called out their names. The transcendent saint from Great Chu looked at Elder Luo suspiciously. There was no other reason. The other party's strength was simply too weak. With such strength, how could he win against the Great Yong sacred dynasty? The transcendent saint from the Great Chu sacred dynasty felt depressed. At this moment, Yi Qianxian spoke. He can win. He believed that woman would definitely not participate in the Empress Dowager's groom search without confidence. Since she dared to bring Old Master Luo, it proved that she was already confident of winning. Although he didn't know what she would do, Yi Qianxian believed in Luo Qingtong. That woman was always able to give him a different kind of joy and surprise. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.